Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable, see playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. I wonder what expression the snapping turtle will have after it reads the letter. When he saw Yi and Wu and the vampiric lord tumble into the rabbit tunnel as though the tunnel were swallowing them, Laplace raised his head upward. The smile on his face grew wider and did not seem like it would disappear any time soon. Had it been that long since he had made a satisfyingly spiteful joke? Bam, bam, bam. At that moment, the barrier of the illusory world shattered into pieces. The blue sky disappeared, replaced by a red one. Really, such rude guests. Is it really okay to be this rude? That's why you'll probably never get married. Laplace laughed lightly as he watched Maxwell, Tarnek's persona as the Demon King, standing in the air. Tarnek's enormous body covered a large part of the red sky. Suddenly, Laplace turned back into the bald, middle-aged man with rabbit ears. As soon as Tarnek saw Laplace's cute rabbit ears fold and unfold, he frowned. The atmosphere around him trembled as if it were expressing his displeasure. Open hollow corner bracket, you're doing weird things again, Laplace. Isn't it cute and stylish? Tarnek had already experienced Laplace's true personality and mannerisms several times in the past, so he knew there was no point in responding to Laplace. His target was not Laplace, anyway. Open hollow corner bracket there. Tarnek burst through the air as he quickly identified Yi and Wu's location. A rabbit tunnel was quickly closing in the back of Laplace's world. If you are a guest with a request, you should take a number and wait your turn. Laplace lightly clapped his oversized rabbit paws. At the sound, the rabbits and other animals who had been playing around in his paradise world suddenly stopped what they were doing. They all turned their heads to Tarnek. Boom! Their bodies trembled before they burst with intense magic power. Each one turned into a demonic sea monster and rushed towards Tarnek. Like Nessie's subordinates, Laplace's subordinates received his powers and factors in his illusory world, and they were many times stronger than the monsters living in the demonic sea. Each one was a huge threat. Open hollow corner bracket, I'm sorry to have to break it to you, but your opponent is not me, Laplace. As soon as Tarnek finished speaking, the chase team behind him rushed forward. Additional guardians had joined the special police force, many of whom had previously served under Tarnek. They immediately clashed against the monsters. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, an intense wave of energy spread through the sky. At the same time, Lupi fell in front of Laplace. This time, I'll make SS sure to eat you up. Crying and shivering, Lupi pounced on Laplace without any hesitation. Tears pooled around his eyes, but a large smile spread across his face. I'm starting to feel a headache coming on. You're really annoying. Laplace had already clashed and struggled against the monster of greed, Lupi, so he knew he was in for a tough battle. Laplace clucked his tongue lightly before extending his hands forward. As the former and current top-level guardians collided, more than half of Laplace's Paradise Island disappeared from the single blow. Bam, bang. Meanwhile, Tarnek stretched his huge hand through the clouds, grabbed the empty air, and started twisting. Crack. The space around the rabbit tunnel twisted violently, forcibly reopening the rabbit tunnel, which had been almost closed. Tarnek stuck his hand inside the opening, grasped once more, and pulled. The rabbit tunnel elongated and stretched out like a funnel. He had pulled the edge of the rabbit tunnel to where he was standing. Rumble. It was a tremendous show of power. Flash. The Blood Kings, Vlad Tepes and Gael de Rais, who had been waiting for this moment, jumped into the rabbit tunnel. Tarnek also sent his will into the tunnel. SS's. Like tentacles, his will and magic power spread within the rabbit tunnel. You have entered the unexplored land, sea of time and space. Warning. You are a trespasser without permission from the Bureau. From this point on, the Central Bureau will mark you for further monitoring. Warning. The tower system's influence is relatively weak in this area. Be prepared for confusion and chaos. Warning. You are urged to withdraw from this place. As many warning messages popped up, Yi and Wu tried to get his bearings. They're coming. His mind was chaotic and fuzzy, as if he had put himself through a spin cycle. There was no difference between front, back, left, right, top, or bottom in the sea or storm of time and space, nor was there any way to tell. Yi Yanwu had difficulty finding his balance. His senses were jumbled, and in this place, he could easily lose his mind for a split second and become lost in the storm of space and time forever, to spend eternity as a lost soul. Luckily, his mental power was as strong as those of the top-ranked players. Yi Yanwu held on to his consciousness and started to slowly regain his senses. There seemed to be a sea in this location, but the various twists and turns he encountered made it difficult to tell if he was even standing. On the other hand, the vampiric lord came to her senses much quicker than Yi Yanwu. She focused her gaze at a point behind herself and muttered to herself, or rather, Yi Yanwu thought he was looking behind her, but he wasn't sure. Right now, I have a mind to just subdue you and find out where Count Ferenc is, but, the vampiric lord paused for a moment, her voice conveying that she had a mountain of things she wanted to say. She peeked at Lana before continuing, if I just did as I wished, I would not be the wise lord that I am. We will defend you, so deliver the item and finish your quest. Although Yi Yanwu did not fully understand what the vampiric lord meant by her words, he understood enough not to refuse her offer of help. However, he still had some concerns. The sea of time and space was a place where all divine providences mixed together. Roads and paths possessed no meaning, nor did they even exist in this place. One misstep meant that one would probably never find one's way back. After you've completed your task, I'll find you. We will find you wherever you may be, the vampiric lord shouted as if she understood Yi Yanwu's concerns. She then fixed her gaze on a spot where their pursuers were, cutting through the dizzying waves of time and space. Yi Yanwu nodded, grabbed his book, and moved ahead, or at least, in the direction he thought was ahead. Fortunately, the book that Laplace had handed him possessed a form of magic that acted like a guide, so he could tell where he was supposed to go. As Yi Yanwu disappeared into the flow of time and space that swirled and crashed like water in a storm, the vampiric lord looked behind her and narrowed her eyes. Her slightly parted lips revealed a pair of sharp fangs. I was wondering who would come. Aren't you a pair of familiar faces? Through the violent torrents of time and space, Vlad Tepes and Giles de Rais appeared, their faces tense and their bodies revealing nervousness. The hero who defeated them to become a lord and led their race to their glory was standing right in front of them. Many years had passed since that time, and the two did not neglect to train while carrying out their responsibilities as guardians. Their level of power surpassed what it had been, yet the memory of their defeat hundreds of years ago did not disappear easily. They had rushed to take revenge on the vampiric lord and return the humiliation and sense of defeat that she had given them in the past. However, standing in front of her right now, they momentarily froze, as though they were having second thoughts. The momentum of power flowing around the vampiric lord was harsh and violent. Ch, click, click, vampiric spirit, the skill that was born from her transcendence, wandered freely between the flow of time and space. What are you both doing? Why aren't you attacking? Since we haven't seen each other in so long, we are prepared to play with you as much as you want. While Vlad Tepes and Giles de Rais stood still and only exchanged glances with the vampiric lord. Open hollow corner bracket stupid fools. The vampiric spirit circled the two menacingly, only to be pushed away by another power. SS's. Particles of black magic power gathered in front of them and turned into the incarnation of Tarnek's will. As a demon king who had achieved transcendence, he could extend his will as far as it could reach. Although his physical body was still outside this space, opening the rabbit tunnel, his consciousness and will had formed this incarnation. Open hollow corner bracket you both have recognized the signs of the demon, and reached an awakened state of being, yet this is all you're able to do. It seems neither of you will ever escape that girl's shadow until the day you die. Tarnek had accepted these two as his followers long ago, but he rebuked them for exhibiting their weakness in front of the vampiric lord. He had considered them possible candidates to become his apostle, and this was an insult to his authority and prestige. Vlad Tepes and Giles de Rais lowered their heads in embarrassment and shame. Give us another chance, Demon King. We will overcome her somehow, and even if just for a moment, we will alleviate the displeasure in the Demon King's heart. Open hollow corner bracket don't do anything useless. What I want is the criminal ###, not a ghost that is neither dead nor alive. Go and capture the criminal. Tarnek was now deeply obsessed with Yi Yanwu, who had made him lose face once already. His sense of pride made it impossible to let someone like that go. Moreover, if he did not take action against the disciple of the martial king now, he did not know what accidents would result in the future. Apparently, Yian-Wu had already been in contact with Laplace, so he seemed to be trying to do something, and Tarnek wanted to stop him. In the first place, Laplace should have no business with the Three God Mountains. I can't let these two run wild anymore. The Three God Mountains was a detour that allowed one to go straight from the lower to the upper floors, where the laws and rules of the lower floors met those of the upper, heavenly floors. The tower's system did not work well here, so the Central Bureau had always been reluctant to step into this space, but two of the worst blacklisted people, Yian-Wu and Laplace, were planning something here, and Tarnek instinctively knew that he had to stop them. He had a strong feeling that a greater disaster would happen, a disaster many times worse than the collapse of the cave of Yannick. Even if Yian-Wu was the Shadow King, he would be up against two Blood Kings who have already begun to bloom as demons. Tarnek was sure that the two would be able to catch Yian-Wu. Vlad Tepes and Gilles de Rais wanted to help their master defeat the vampiric lord, but they had to follow his orders, and so they continued pursuing Yian-Wu. As they sped towards Yian-Wu, they left two red beams in their wake. "Do you not see that we are present? How dare you leave without seeking permission?" As the vampiric lord shouted loudly, her vampiric spirit spread out like black thorny vines in all directions, forming a black net that almost encircled the two red beams. However, before the net could completely enclose them, dense magic power in the form of a blade fell and tore her net. Rip. Boom. Open hollow corner bracket ghost. Do you dare stand next to me so indifferently? I don't know what you're aiming for, but you will ultimately fail. Tarnek growled, as his 7 horns stood upright. When Tarnek heard that Yian-Wu had kidnapped his right-hand guard, OHN, he was angered that one of his subordinates had been endangered. However, his anger when he learned that OHN was actually the vampiric lord couldn't be described. Even just thinking about it made his blood boil and flow in reverse. Tarnek, you know what? The vampiric lord laughed coldly as she easily blocked Tarnek's fist as it closed in on her face. Your breath stinks. We don't know if you're carrying around a sewer inside you, but you really made it difficult for us to stay beside you without smacking you at least once. It was an obvious provocation, and one of Tarnek's eyebrows twitched. Open hollow corner bracket you bitch, do you have the power to back up such silly words? Don't go around calling us a bitch. We do not like being called a bitch. Also, what the hell did you eat for lunch? Your breath smells so bad we can't even breathe. Open hollow corner bracket it seems that you've resigned yourself to death this day. Bluish-green veins started protruding from Tarnek's forehead. How could he call himself the Demon King if he didn't act after hearing such insults? However, even though she said such condescending words, the vampiric lord seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. She had been increasing her vampiric spirit to frightening levels, and it had grown to the point that it seemed like it would soon consume time and space in the area. Bam! The two transcendent beings collided, and the sea of time and space shook violently. I wonder how far I've gone. Yian-Wu was barely holding on to consciousness with sheer willpower. He carefully took a step forward. Thanks to the protection of the tower's system, the chase team members could keep their consciousness alert in the sea of time and space, but Yian-Wu had to endure with his own strength. The sea of time and space was far more terrifying than he had imagined. Since time and space were mixed up in this space, it meant that one's existence was constantly on the brink of being shaken and jumbled. Everything he was trying to achieve could disappear in an instant, and so, Yian-Wu did not rely on his will. He was planning to use something else. Illusory world. He delved deeper into his inner illusory world, the foundation of his self-identity or ego, and consciousness. His inner illusory world used a channel to express itself outwardly in the form of his will. Therefore, to increase his will, he had to make this channel wider and larger. Increasing his will would not only strengthen his defenses against this place, but it would also strengthen his soul. In theory, it was simple but it was difficult in practice. However, Yian-Wu already had a reference point, Nessie. Nessie, the king of the demonic sea, could freely control and recreate its illusory world. If Yian-Wu could imitate Nessie's skill, he might be able to expand his illusory world and his channel, and thus, his will. Even if he could not immediately recreate a custom illusory world like Nessie, he could adapt the method and apply it to develop and perfect his self-identity. He would also be able to elevate his consciousness to a higher level. When I used my sword, I couldn't completely defeat Nessie. It wasn't because I was weak but because my eyes didn't penetrate the foundation of its existence. Compared to Nessie, I lack recognition and control over my self-identity. Nessie was a king that survived the disorder and chaos of the demonic sea. It was probably unreasonable for Yianwu to expect to reach Nessie's level after only seeing Nessie's abilities once, but Yianwu had gained a lot from that single interaction. Though he had accomplished many things, Yianwu also realized that he still had a long way to go. Furthermore, when he saw the vampiric lord and Laplace competing with Nessie on equal footing, Yianwu's worldview had crumbled. Although he had overcome his limitations and obtained an ultimate skill that would rank high among the highest level of players, there was still a vast sky beyond him. Heaven beyond the heavens and a sky beyond the sky. Yianwu wanted to climb higher. Since he had already reached the highest levels as a player, he felt that he could do more. Taking this path was possibly the way to achieve the perfect score that his master, the martial king, had once spoken of. If he could put this level into words, it would be divine human. Yianwu felt that this was an apt description. Somehow, he ended up using the same word as the one Balak had used to explain his ideal and goal. Maybe Balak's ideal, master's path, and my goal is the same end but with different approaches. The one-horned tribe had a saying, many things become one. Just as streams from countless tributaries merged together and eventually flowed into a large sea, the saying meant that all roads inevitably reached one place and one end. Yianwu took another step forward. Thud, there was a chance he was going down the wrong path, but it didn't matter. He would just go back and find another way and take another step forward on a different path. Yianwu calmed his mind, pushed aside his worries over being pursued, and tried to fully focus on finding his true self within the turbulent flow of time and space. Deep inside his body, Yianwu could feel something wriggling. It was his soul, which was imprisoned in his body and unsure of its own existence. It shook violently, and as he stretched out his spiritual power, he began to recognize something. Extrasensory perception has found a new possibility. The synchronization of outward expression and inward reflection has been successfully achieved. Extrasensory perception, skill proficiency has increased significantly. Extrasensory perception, skill proficiency has increased significantly. The skill is transforming according to the rapid increase in skill proficiency. The skill has connected with the Atman system. Inner illusory reflection is now possible. You have gained a new awareness regarding the skill. A new option has been added. The option, perceiving the heavens, has been created. Perceiving the heavens. Grade S. Description. When one's will and illusory presence is engraved on the world, a universe, Atman, awakens. The truth and endless wisdom of the universe come from this place. At that moment, one will become enlightened and understand previously unknown information, as well as acquire new spiritual, soul-expanding powers. The 6 supernatural abilities born from this enlightenment are commonly referred to as the 6 godly perceptions. Among the 6 godly perceptions, perceiving the heavens, is an eye that sees through everything. It also represents a mirror that reflects the truth of one's inner world. When you acquire additional perceptions from the 6 godly perceptions, the grade goes up level by level to a maximum of SSS+. Currently, perceiving the heavens is linked to the following skills. 1. Draconic eyes. 2. Fiery golden eyes. 3. Black Gubatera, philosopher's eyes. 4. Hell's eyes. You have acquired a clue about the 6 supernatural abilities, 6 godly perceptions. Once qualified, you can acquire additional abilities. Please refer to the information window for more details. At that moment, Yianwu felt as if his previously chaotic inner world had suddenly become clearer and brighter. The disjointed and jumbled information that he used to gather from extrasensory perception was being organized within a larger, structured system that drew a clear design in his mind. He suddenly understood the concept of supernatural abilities. My soul has awakened anew. Yianwu realized that his soul had grown once more, just like when he realized the connection between his will and his consciousness. Was this because he was temporarily free of the restrictions of the tower's system? Previously, Yianwu felt something unknown was suppressing him, but now, he could no longer feel any sense of suppression. He felt like his self was growing and becoming stronger, much like the development of a being before it cracked out of its shell. Furthermore, with the addition of perceiving the heavens to his extrasensory perception, the foggy and shimmering uncertainty of the world began to peel away. Swish! A calm indigo sea slowly appeared before him, and Yianwu immediately saw 3 large mountains jutting into the sky in the distance, Bongla, Bangjiang, and Yangju. The three spiritual mountains that made up the three god mountains appeared one after another. It was said that divine beings from legends resided in them. Kuwu, a giant tortoise swam leisurely through the sea of time and space carrying the three god mountains on its back. Along with the heavenly dragon, giraffe, and phoenix, the tortoise was an entity that belonged among the highest of divine beasts. It was the same entity that had led Laplace out of the demonic sea in the form of a snapping turtle, and the same entity to whom Yian-Wu had to give the book. A lot has changed. After perceiving the heavens, Yian-Wu could see more than the forms of the three god mountains. There were also various heavenly and underworld providences and laws that flowed through the sea of time and space's undercurrents and storms. Yian-Wu felt that he was in the presence of greatness. If he could feel this with just perceiving of heavens, what kind of scene would he see if he could awaken the other perceptions? Maybe I'd open the path to omniscience and omnipotence. Yian-Wu was convinced that he glimpsed a part of a god's right and ability, something that only those among the highest of transcendental beings possessed. However, just as he had that thought, poof, Shadow King, we've finally found you. Your freedom ends here. Through his draconic eyes, which were connected to perceiving the heavens, Yian-Wu could see the changes in the flow of time and space. Above his head, Vlad Tepes and Giles de Rais opened a space and appeared with scowls. Although they were protected by the tower's system, they still had to cross through the torrents and storms of time and space, so they were quite exhausted. They could not help being angry at Yian-Wu for putting them through this exhausting chase. As they released the sign of the demon and transformed into demons, Vlad Tepes and Giles de Rais attacked Yian-Wu. What? However, the two felt a sense of danger as soon as Yian-Wu made eye contact with them. Instead of being bewildered or afraid, Yian-Wu stood tall without putting up any defenses. However, it was already too late for the two. Slash. Arg. Hey, this is With a sound like the sky shattering, space ripped open, tearing through the two before they could even show their true forms. They burst into bloody mists and black puffs of smoke before scattering into time and space. Yian-Wu lightly clucked his tongue as he looked at the spot where the two had stood. Idiots. Did they pursue me without knowing anything about the three god mountains? Tarnek had probably been in too much of a hurry to explain the details, and his oversight had done Yian-Wu a favor. The three god mountains was a place where you had to put your sword away because great beings resided there. In other words, the three god mountains can also be called a stairway or a ladder that connects the heavenly world to the underworld. Of course, you need a high rank even among the gods and demons to live there, and only a few gods and demons are allowed to enter. Yian-Wu turned his head to the tortoise that carried the three god mountains. The supreme deity of the heavens, the Jade Emperor, is hiding in the three god mountains. At the entrance to the three god mountains located on the tortoise's head, a giant several meters tall roared menacingly as he wielded an axe that was as large as his body. Jade Emperor. Here, no sword. Never. Can't go. Without my permission. No one. Bam. There's a gatekeeper who guards the entrance and protects the sleeping Jade Emperor. He inherited the axe that belonged to the original giant, Bongo, as soon as he hatched from his shell and opened his eyes. He is heaven's supreme warrior, a primordial warlord, and a fighter that many gods and demons are reluctant to antagonize because of his titles and accomplishments. He's the reason why gods and demons from both the heavens and the underworld aren't allowed to enter the three god mountains. Listen to Kiku. In his diary, Jung-Woo had nothing but high praise for the best fighter of the heavenly world, Kiku. Kiku had appeared. The 98th floor's heavenly world was divided into two camps, gods and demons. The gods were further divided into various societies, and among them, the Chan sect was considered one of the most prestigious. The Jade Emperor and other great gods had formed the sect, and it was also home to other great beings such as Hui, West Empress Dowager, Dao Tianzun, and Lingbao Tianzun. They also had the ancient god Sanwang Wudi behind them, which made even the demons reluctant to confront them. The only exception was the Jia sect, which was diametrically opposed to the Chan sect. However, if it wasn't for the presence of the Jia sect's own ancient demon, they would never have been able to confront the Chan sect on relatively equal footing. With the greatest god, the Jade Emperor, at its helm and many illustrious gods among its ranks, the Chan sect could be considered a true eminence among the various heavenly societies. If one were to pick the most skilled god among the Chan sect, it would likely be the eldest among the five heads, the Yellow Emperor. Kiku was a battle general that the Yellow Emperor cherished most. The legends about the Chan sect told about a time when the Yellow Emperor lost his treasured sage bead while traveling through the Kunlun Mountains. The sage bead was a treasure that allowed insight into all things of the world and peeked into the future of the universe. It was an important, indispensable treasure that the Yellow Emperor used to rule the entire universe. At that time, he ordered the most knowledgeable of his subordinates, Ji, to find the sage bead, but Ji was unsuccessful. Then, the emperor ordered Li Ju, who had the ability to see everything within hundreds of thousands of kilometers, to find the sage bead. However, Li Ju also failed to find the Yellow Emperor's treasure. Only after these successive failures did he send his most cherished subordinate, Kiku, to search for the sage bead. Although Kiku did not find the sage bead in the end, he searched for several days and nights without rest, unlike the other subordinates. The Yellow Emperor was impressed by Kiku's stubborn loyalty, and he developed a deep trust in this subordinate, asking him to stay close by his side whenever he moved around. Yi and Wu did not know why the Yellow Emperor had sent his loyal subordinate to be the gatekeeper of the Three God Mountains, but ever since the tower's inception, Kiku had faithfully carried out his duty, never leaving his station for the past thousands of years. The Jade Emperor slept in the Golden Jade Palace inside the Three God Mountains, and since Kiku was protecting him, he would never allow uninvited visitors access. It was disrespectful to raise weapons or reveal murderous intentions in sacred ground, and these acts would be seen as a direct affront to the Jade Emperor himself. It was impossible for Kiku not to take action when he heard the commotion, and so he quickly eliminated Vlad Tepes and Giles de Rais. By the time they realized who was guarding the entrance, it was too late. Bang! PSSH. Kiku tightened his grip on Bongo's crescent sword. It seemed that he was still dissatisfied with something. His bloodthirsty gaze turned to Yi and Wu. What kind of momentum is? Although Kiku couldn't speak well, he was strong enough to be recognized as the greatest fighter in the Chan sect in the heavenly world. He might be inferior to Hades or Typhon when it came to overall skills and power level, but in terms of pure fighting ability, he overwhelmed them all, as though he had been created just to fight. Even though only their eyes met, Yi and Wu felt his skin tingle and crawl. However, this brief exchange helped Yi and Wu understand the path he needed to take to develop his right wing of fight. However, it wasn't the time for him to lose focus. Since Kiku might consider him an uninvited guest, Yi and Wu felt nervous, so he anxiously tried to pull out Laplace's book, all the while hoping that Laplace wasn't on the blacklist. I don't like it, you. Before Yi and Wu had the chance to say anything, Kiku yelled at him. Despite his distance from the Three God Mountains, Yi and Wu heard him as clearly as though he were standing right next to him. Human. With Black King remnant. You. Candidate. But not Black King. You smell like close friend. So, I let you go. What? Yi and Wu wondered how Kiku knew about the Black King. Unlike the gods and demons of death, or even the otherworld gods searching for the Black King, Kiku's hostility bordered on hatred. Yi and Wu could tell that there was a story behind Kiku's dislike of the Black King, but he couldn't understand what the hell Kiku meant by saying Yi and Wu smelled like a close friend. However, Kiku disappeared immediately after finishing his sentence, as if he didn't care what Yi and Wu thought. SS's. At the place where Kiku had stood, the mist scattered to reveal a trail leading into the mountains. It seemed to beckon at Yi and Wu. Yi and Wu paused for a moment, but as if possessed by something, he used fire wings to glide towards the trail. According to legend, the Three God Mountains were originally composed of 5 mountains: Daeyo, Wonkyo, Bangjang, Yeongju, and Bongla. Each mountain was 30,000 kilometers tall and had gold and jade facades that made them look like lavish pavilions. The mountains were filled with beautiful trees that lined up like beads. However, after sitting on the back of the tortoise and floating in the sea of time and space for a long time, 2 of the mountains had floated away, 2 looked different due to the constant wind, and only 1 remained intact. Also, because the 3 spiritual mountains have existed for what seems like eternity, it appears as though time has ceased within them. Each mountain holds an endless amount of time. The 3 God Mountains also represented time. Yeongju Mountain represented the past. Bangjang Mountain represented the present. Bongla Mountain represented the future. The 3 spiritual mountains were connected to each other like a mountain range, forming a circle from the past to the future, and then from the future to the past. At first glance, it's like the structure of the 16th floor. Yi and Wu thought of the temples of the 3 Norns. Although he had clashed with Erd and made her lose many followers, the divinity that the goddesses possessed was real, and Yi and Wu even heard that their influence had grown recently. The 16th floor had a forked path that divided into 3 paths, each one leading to a different goddess. Here, each mountain represented a section of time. However, on the 16th floor, players had to choose a path to receive the blessing of one of the goddesses, and this blessing would influence their characteristics and achievements. At the Three God Mountains, one had to follow the cycle of time, from the past to the future. Disconnection and connection. The two areas were polar opposites despite their superficial similarities. The 16th floor is just an imitation of this place. The concept of time and space could not be easily countered even by the greatest beings. Even after achieving transcendence, cosmic beings could only adjust the flow of time and space. They could never reverse it. If that were at all possible, none of them would be imprisoned on the 98th floor or continue a pointless war. Gods who possessed abilities related to time and space were treated as important figures in each society, and each society didn't hesitate to do unthinkable acts and commit unspeakable atrocities in order to create gods and demons with space and time abilities. The predominantly stationary goddesses of the 16th floor were members of the godly society Asgard. Were they stationed on the 16th because they were not considered important gods? Or were they seeking specific qualities from among the players? After my clash with Erd, none of the goddesses seemed to be interested in me. The gods and demons usually saw players and natives as insignificant beings. Instead of being wise guardians, the gods and demons were often petty and sought revenge for slights, both real and perceived. As transcendental beings, their fears centered around the contamination or defilement of their divinity. After clashing with Yi and Wu, Erd's divinity had been damaged, and she lost many of her apostles, as well as the faith of her followers. The same thing happened to the other two goddesses. However, they had never taken any action against Yi and Wu. In fact, neither did the entire Asgard society. Among their members, only gods like Thor, who was interested in Yi and Wu's fighting and combat powers, were interested in him. Since he did not want to get unexpectedly smacked on the back of his head later, Yi and Wu felt that he should take time to investigate why the gods had not moved against him. Yi and Wu walked on the trail with these thoughts. He couldn't figure out his location, and both the trail and his surroundings were shrouded in mist. Perceiving the heavens allowed him to see outside the mountains, even though the flow of time and space was chaotic, but it became impossible as soon as he entered this space. It was the same when it came to expanding his consciousness to his surroundings. He could not detect anything. He gathered his magic power and shot it out like a bullet towards the side of the trail, but the mist just swallowed the bullet without showing any change. He wondered what would happen if he veered off the trail, but he decided not to take any unnecessary risks, so he just continued walking. Since the sky was also filled with the opaque mist, Yi and Wu could not use his wings to reach the Golden Jade Palace through the air. After some time, Yi and Wu felt the path rise. He had finally set foot on the first of the three god mountains, Yeongju Mountain. You have entered Yeongju Mountain. The short message appeared clearly on his retina as the landscape began to change. It's something I've been through before, but this truly feels dirty. The mental anguish and trauma that Erd had provoked in him flashed before his eyes. Yi and Wu recalled the abandonment he'd suffered from his trusted associates, his death crisis, and returned to the army headquarters. However, unlike his recollection before, Yeongju Mountain continued to show him what happened after he returned to the base. His return upended the Joint Command Center. Everyone thought Kane was dead, and Yi and Wu remembered clashing with some of the high-ranking military officials, who tried to cover up the incident. Anticipation. Revenge. The casings that he threw in their faces. After they imprisoned him for mutiny, the higher officials continued to condemn and silence him. His commander, a father figure to him, ran around like a headless chicken to save him. Yi and Wu felt like he was watching a third-rate film, but he had to endure it. Back then, each passing day brought fresh dangers. In the end, the bullseye. Damn it, someone shot his lover while she tried to protect him. The killer escaped from the scene immediately, and Yi and Wu could not catch him because his lover had grabbed his sleeve to tell him her last words, which were forever linked to the image of her fluttering hands. I love you. I love you. Those words made Yi and Wu crazy. Whenever he clashed with his lover's younger brother or his lover, she always wept. She never asked him to forgive her brother or to apologize to her. Even when Yi and Wu tormented her for no good reason, she only looked at him with a sad gaze. Then, with her last dying breath, she said, I love you. This was why Yi and Wu had thrown the casings in Jiang Wei's face before walking out. Jiang Wei had pulled the trigger that fateful day, but Yi and Wu blamed himself for his lover's death anyway. He didn't want to get his hands any dirtier and he wished to rid himself of the past when he'd thrown the casings. Jiang Wei was already in a state of ruin, and it was impossible that he would survive, so Yianwu thought that Jiang Wei would meet his end. However, Jiang Wei unexpectedly reappeared in the tower, of all places, holding on to the casings with, Christmas Day, 2017, the words he'd engraved on Mount Shimbiris in Somalia. Jiang Wei had been swept away by the emptiness, but where was he now? Yianwu looked at his past with a dry expression, like someone watching an unenjoyable movie. He was indifferent, but entirely so. He remembered all the feelings, thoughts, and circumstances that he had gone through then, but it did not affect him now. He had come too far to get caught up again in his past. Yianwu thought that what Shannon had said about him before was right, tool. For Yianwu, even his past was nothing more than a tool to be thrown away once it was no longer useful. Even the feelings he'd shared with his old lover had withered away to the point that he wondered if they'd ever been in love with in the first place. Could he really be called a human? He'd asked himself this question already before. You have entered, Bang Jiang. After an unknown period of time, Yianwu passed the first mountain and reached the second mountain, which showed the present, and he viewed the things he'd gone through in the tower, beginning with the memories of his younger brother and the leave of absence to return to Korea, which he thought would be his final visit home. He saw the moment he entered the tower, the tutorial, the friendships he'd struck, his slowly changing attitude and perspective until he reached the very moment he was in now. The scenes had the same effect as when he'd crossed Yeongju Mountain. You have entered, Bangla Mountain. As soon as he reached the final mountain, Yianwu hesitated for the first time. He'd seen the message but he saw nothing ahead. It was only pitch-black darkness. He couldn't understand what this meant about his future. What? Neither the past nor the present affected him. Only one question mattered to someone like him, who ran forward with only one goal in mind. Would he achieve his goal? Would he be able to conquer the tower and destroy it? When Yianwu patiently walked to Bangla Mountain, he hoped that he would see the scenes he was hoping for. Even if he did not see what he wished for, he wanted to learn anything that might happen, even a glimpse or passing clue. If he could not achieve his goal, he was ready to change his plans. If he were walking the wrong path, he would change it. But, what the hell was this? Yianwu was contemplating what to do and where to go. SS's. Suddenly, the darkness ripped up and disintegrated. Yianwu had arrived at the very end of Bangla Mountain, where he saw a huge Oriental-style palace that glowed purple. It looked like something that only existed in Eastern legends. A 5-year-old boy appeared in front of him. He was cute, with red cheeks that looked like peaches. He wore silk clothing and his elegant demeanor made it clear that he was of the nobility. Yianwu instinctively knew that he was the snapping turtle who had led Laplace out of the demonic sea. This young boy was the incarnation of the tortoise's spirit. He was also the secretary in charge of handling the sleeping Jade Emperor's affairs. However, the snapping turtle stared at Yianwu without saying anything. His eyes were so deep that Yianwu felt as if he were being sucked into them. It seemed as if the boy's eyes contained emptiness itself. Are you a human? The snapping turtle asked a question before Yianwu could say anything. Yianwu didn't know how to answer the question. It doesn't matter if you're the Black King's potential successor. As long as you are part of the cycle of life, you should have a future. Even a god or a demon, any creature, even those beings outside, cannot escape the future. It's destiny. However, I can't see your future. In fact, you don't possess one. What? Yianwu frowned. The snapping turtle spoke confidently even though he seemed to contradict himself by saying that Yianwu didn't have a future, even though everyone had one. The snapping turtle continued to speak like a sage who mastered all knowledge, his expression serious. There can only be one of two reasons. He said in a strong voice, either you're dying, or, his black eyes glittered. You're already dead. What do you mean? Yianwu's eyes gleamed coldly. What the hell is this guy saying? Is he saying that I won't succeed in the end and just die? The snapping turtle, the tortoise's incarnation, seemed to emphasize the second part of its statement more than the first part, as though implying that Yianwu had already died. Are you saying I'm not a living person? Yianwu released a bloodthirsty aura that raged like a storm, and it seemed that he might pull out Vigrid at any moment. Instantly, Yianwu felt watchful eyes peering behind him, Kiku. He was giving Yianwu a warning that he would not stand idly by if Yianwu drew his sword. This was the palace where the Jade Emperor, the supreme deity and king of the heavenly world, was resting. It was absolutely forbidden to take out a weapon. Still, Yianwu did not seem to care. He had to know what the exact meaning of the snapping turtle's enigmatic words were, instinctively feeling that they would affect whether or not he would achieve his goals. I don't know either. I only understand as much as you do. The snapping turtle looked at Yi and Wu's hand, which had opened his subspace, and then shook his head. If you were destined to die, especially if it were to happen soon, I would see it right away. Bong the mountain would have shown you how you die as well. But you didn't see anything, nor did I. The snapping turtle's eyes penetrated into Yi and Wu's soul. If you ask me if you're dead, I can't really say that you are. If you were truly dead, you wouldn't have seen anything on Yeongju Mountain. The three god mountains are like a mirror that only shows the reflections of the living. The dead are under the jurisdiction of the underworld, not here. Then maybe you're going to ask if it's because you've inherited the throne of death, right? Even a god or a demon who has divinity related to death cannot avoid the all-knowing reflection of the three god mountains. Gods and demons cannot avoid reincarnation and fate. In fact, since gods and demons are supreme beings, they have a harder time breaking the law of causality. The snapping turtle confirmed that the three god mountains, which occupied a crucial role in the law of causality, would not misread his fate. In the end, Yi and Wu could only keep his mouth shut. How was he supposed to accept the words of the snapping turtle? What was the meaning behind the pitch-black darkness that he saw at the three god mountains? Of course, Yi and Wu did have a theory, the Black King's darkness. Yi and Wu thought that the darkness he had seen was not necessarily a lack of existence, although he couldn't be sure. Even transcendent and cosmic beings feared the Black King. If he were the Black King's successor, wouldn't he already stand outside the wheel of reincarnation and the law of causality? No, that's not it either. As if reading Yi and Wu's thoughts, the snapping turtle smiled gently. You're not him, right? He crushed Yi and Wu's theory. In the end, the only answer that Yi and Wu could come up with was, is there nothing? But Yi and Wu thought this was acceptable, too. He would not be chained to his fate. His future was unreadable. In other words, he could pursue whatever he wanted and go down any path he wanted to achieve his goal. You're not a normal human being, are you? Most humans would be frustrated or feel grim at this discovery. However, you're accepting it so easily. It's hard to figure out if you're good at rationalizing, if you're comfortable with yourself, or if you have that much self-confidence. The snapping turtle had the power to see through everything in the three god mountains, which meant that he could not only view the same things that those who passed the three spiritual mountains did, he also accessed their thoughts, feelings, and subconscious. For this reason, many gods and demons did not easily visit the three god mountains. Although the flow of time and space was also a difficult barrier to cross, these supreme beings were afraid that the snapping turtle would read their entire fate. The more divinity one possessed, the more one would be bound by fate. Exposing their fate would also reveal their weaknesses and faults. The snapping turtle relieved his boredom by drifting around the sea of time and space, and occasionally, when guests visited, he would spread the word about their fates. To him, Yi and Wu was a strange visitor. Although he'd experienced many traumatic events, Yi and Wu accepted them all nonchalantly. His emotions were dull, as though he were disconnected from the past rather than simply strong. It was as if his past belonged to him but was also not his. It's as if he's ceased to exist in this world but has also come back to life. So, it's like being dead but not dead at the same time. As Shannon had once commented, Yi and Wu saw many things as tools to be used as needed and thrown away when unnecessary. This even included his body and his soul. What does one endure in life to become this way? Although the snapping turtle had lived for a long time, he could not understand Yi and Wu's thinking. Yi and Wu took the idea of tools to the extreme, and it was strange for the snapping turtle to see someone consider his own life and death as unimportant. However, the snapping turtle did not put his thoughts into words since he wasn't sure, and Yi and Wu was probably quite self-aware, anyway. In fact, Yi and Wu's strange perspective was perhaps the reason why he'd been chosen as the Black King's potential successor. The snapping turtle thought the two were very similar in many ways. Both were clearly intelligent, but they were also shrouded in mystery. Anyway, let's discuss your existence later. You came here to finish an errand, right? Well, hand it over then. After a moment of deep thought, Yi and Wu took out the book and handed it to the snapping turtle. As the snapping turtle said, he probably would not gain much from reflecting on what he saw at the three spiritual mountains. He would have to find the answers he wanted himself. Laplace, that silly bunny. He dragged his feet for so long since my request. What does he expect from me if he gives me such a late response? In any case, it seems that he's finally made up his mind. The snapping turtle sulked and grunted lightly. Yi and Wu thought that it was a rather unbecoming expression, even though it technically didn't look out of place on a child's face. You have successfully completed the sudden quest less than the hare's liver tail greater than. You have made an achievement that is not easily accomplished. Additional karma will be provided. You have acquired 100,000 karma. You have acquired an additional 150,000 karma. As a reward, you have acquired the qualification to visit the Three God Mountains and the right to use the tutorial ticket. You have the right to enter and exit the mountains with the permission of the snapping turtle. For details, please contact the snapping turtle. From now on, you can use the tutorial ticket. For details on how to use the ticket, refer to the information window. Wham! There was a burst of light in Yin Wu's pocket, and the tutorial ticket floated to his palm. Tutorial ticket. Type. Miscellaneous good. Class. X. Description. A ticket that allows you to enter the tutorial stage. Players are not usually allowed to enter the tutorial, but the ticket provides its holder permission. It is originally for guardians and floor administrators only. It can only be used once, so be careful. When it is used by a person other than the guardian or floor administrator, the Central Bureau is immediately alerted. Finally, I got it. From the cave of Yannick to the demonic sea and finally the Three God Mountains. The journey, which was supposed to be fairly easy, had gone on much longer than Yin Wu expected, and the Central Bureau's pursuit had grown more tenacious. Still, he was glad to have the tutorial ticket. Of course, things weren't over yet. He was still being pursued by the Central Bureau. Tarnek and Lupi, whose pride had been damaged, would never let him go. It seemed likely that the entire tutorial stage would soon be torn up. Capturing Akasha's snake alive is a delicate operation, and with those pursuers this is going to be a headache. Yin Wu wanted a way to connect to the Black King and capturing Akasha's snake was simply a means to that end. Therefore, he wanted to try something first. While pondering his next move, Yin Wu watched the snapping turtle read the entire book and smirk before ripping the book apart. Yin Wu was startled. Isn't it an important book? I wondered why the snapping turtle. Ding! The wind scattered the scraps of the book, and soon, a vivid blood-colored jewel appeared and fell into the snapping turtle's hands. Yin Wu knew what it was at once. Blood essence. No, it's much more concentrated, right? Is it a higher quality version? Laplace's blood essence was of a much higher quality than the ones from the cave of Yannick, and it seemed to contain more divine factors, as well. If blood tear stones and blood essence were simple ore, this was a sparkling gem. The blood essence seems so familiar. Why is that? At that moment, Yin Wu felt the sin stone in his heart tremble in excitement as if had met a good friend. It was different from when sin stone encountered a soul stone. We usually call this a blood jade. It's one of the few pure traces left by the otherworld god inside this place. In the beginning, when there was only darkness like the Black King's darkness, light burst out, and this fragment is part of that light source. The vibration and resonance of Yin Wu's sin stone intensified to an alarming degree. This soul stone was created around the same time as your sin stone, so its reaction is not a surprise. What the hell is that? Yin Wu's voice trembled slightly. He understood that the blood jade was of a higher grade than blood essence, but what was the blood jade made of? Didn't I just tell you? It's like the fire that first appeared when the universe was born. The details are related to the creation of the universe, so I'm forbidden to talk about it here. If you want to know, you must gain the qualification or you can visit Chenggong Library. You'll learn more than I can ever tell you if you visit the library. Yin Wu committed the name of the library to his memory. Then, may I ask what you're planning to do with the blood jade? Yin Wu normally didn't care about things that had nothing to do with him, especially in the tower, where foolish inquisitiveness could lead to danger. However, the blood jade had some connection to his sin stone, and Yin Wu wanted to understand how the blood jade, which had seemed like just another remnant of the otherworld god, could be used. Since the otherworld god was from chaos, his skills and abilities were lethal to the tower's gods and demons. Yin Wu thought the snapping turtle might want it for research or to create a weapon, and so the snapping turtle's answer came as a surprise. It's a liver. Liver. Yeah, Laplace's liver. His actual liver. It's a panacea, like a magic kiss that can wake up a princess who has fallen into a coma. This answer was just as unexpected. The reason I led Laplace out of his home in the demonic sea was to seek a cure for an illness that has befallen the Jade Emperor and other supreme beings. However, when that wicked bunny saw danger coming, he immediately ran away and took a long time giving me an answer. Yin Wu finally understood why Laplace had been in the Central Bureau for so long. He must have thought that if he joined the Central Bureau, which maintained a completely objective and neutral relationship with the heavenly world, even the snapping turtle would not be able to get to him. Then he got himself into trouble and was kicked out of the Central Bureau, so he decided to work with the snapping turtle again. What had Laplace done at the Central Bureau? What did he do to be driven back to the demonic sea and forced to ally with the snapping turtle again? Yin Wu wondered whether it was really just curiosity that drove Laplace to leave the demonic sea and enter the wider world. There seemed to be another reason, something huge that he hadn't considered. Anyway, now that I've received this blood jade or Laplace's liver, I will be able to cure the Jade Emperor's illness. And in return, I will give Laplace, clap. The snapping turtle clapped his hands smartly, and the blood jade dissipated into the air. In its place, a thick book appeared in front of the snapping turtle and opened up. I will release his restraints and give him freedom. That was the deal. Yin Wu could guess what the snapping turtle had summoned, the system record book. The highest-ranking members of the heavenly world had the divine right to access and change the tower's system. The snapping turtle smiled brightly, closed his eyes, and chanted a mantra. Restraints, break them. Gong. A small shockwave spread from the snapping turtle. The law must now be applied. Gong. A slightly larger shockwave spread out, and the tower's system provided protection to Laplace, who was born in the demonic sea and had always been classified as an entity outside the tower. This was done according to the authority of the Jade Emperor and carried out by his loyal servant, the snapping turtle. From this moment on, Laplace could now move around in the tower freely. It means he won't be pursued by the Central Bureau anymore. Just as Yin Wu was thinking this, there was an impact from outside the sea of time and space. Bam! It was so intense that it broke through the intense flow of time and space. Laplace's restrictions were gone, and he could now display his true power. Yin Wu did not know for certain how much stronger Laplace had become, but he had a feeling that Tarnek and Lupi, who had a bad history with Laplace, were in for a rude surprise. Their battle was going to grow worse. He's a king of the demonic sea that now has the protection of the tower's system. Just thinking about it was terrifying for Yin Wu. If Laplace entered a floor, he could cause so much havoc that Alpharon would probably appear and intervene immediately. No, wait, maybe that's what he's aiming for. Was it possible that this was Laplace's purpose? Yin Wu was sure that anyone who spied into his thoughts would dismiss this theory as the result of an overactive imagination. Take this. The snapping turtle threw something at Yin Wu as he closed the system record book, a marble that looked like the blood jade. However, the shimmering scarlet of the marble reminded Yin Wu of an autumn maple leaf. What is this? Lee's fragment. The snapping turtle made an enigmatic smile. This item cannot be determined. Can't be determined. It was the first time a message like that had appeared, so Yin Wu's eyes widened in surprise. Even with his draconic eyes, which he had upgraded through perceiving the heavens, could not find any information. I am giving you this gift as thanks. Just think of it as a reward from the system for your achievements. It will probably come in handy in the future. Yin Wu mumbled the name of the item, but without any hesitation, he put it into his personal storage space. Any gifts from the snapping turtle had to be something good. After all, he was someone who read the fates of those who visited the Three God Mountains, and he would know what Yin Wu would need in the future. Yin Wu thanked him and turned around with the tutorial ticket in his hand. It was finally time to move to the tutorial stage. Just before tearing the ticket, Yin Wu felt the flow of time and space around him shake. An enormous vortex appeared beyond the Three God Mountains, sucking the time and space into the rabbit tunnel as though it were a giant drain. Tarnek. It seemed that Tarnek had anxiously sprang into action as soon as he thought that Yin Wu's companions were escaping the Three God Mountains. Yin Wu tried to withstand the pressure and rip the ticket, but it wasn't easy. Portal creation has been unsuccessful. Portal creation has been unsuccessful. You cannot use the ticket here. The coordinates of time and space cannot be recognized and the portal cannot be created. Please move to a safe location and use it again. In the end, Yin Wu couldn't withstand the winds and was blown away. Whoosh. Open hollow corner bracket, damn it. Tarnek felt like he was going to lose his wits. In the demonic sea where his true body was, Laplace was attacking him with the monsters, and in the sea of time and space where his incarnation was, the vampiric lord was spreading a strange darkness. What was more, Vlad Tepes and Giles de Rais had returned in shreds. Thanks to awakening as demons, their existences weren't completely destroyed, but with their critical injuries, they most likely needed some time to recover. Things were becoming dangerous for him, and so Tarnek finally made a decision. His true body might be fatally injured, but it wasn't the time to worry about that. Crack! Tarnek's true body in the demonic sea was already holding the rabbit tunnel open with all his might, but he mustered up even more strength. Brr! The giant body shook. It was like watching a mountain tremble from an earthquake. Twisting a hidden stage and the cracks of space that led to it, as well as forcefully pulling the people inside away from it, took a significant toll even on entities like Tarnek with greater divinity. However, it was definitely effective. Tarnek pulled not only the cracks of space, but also the causality that was mixed among them. He would twist the cause, the opening the rabbit tunnel, and the effect, Yin Wu and his companions moving beyond the sea of time and space, and make it as though it had never happened. It was a forced inversion of the principle of causation. Crack, crack. Just as he'd worried, he was fatally injured. Cracks began appearing all over his body, a sure sign that his level would be damaged. He was exceeding the amount of law of causality that Clus could handle. Even so, Tarnek's eyes blazed with the determination to force Yin Wu here. Today, no matter what it took, he was going to put them down. However, those beyond the space couldn't be overlooked either. Yin Wu was the successor of the throne of death, and the vampiric lord was a king of the demonic sea. He was beginning to feel frustrated when the inversion of causation didn't occur when Laplace suddenly stopped pushing away Lupi with his magic power and began laughing at the sky. Kyahaha, I've come back, finally. The sound of the middle-aged Baldy's high-pitched laughter was repulsive, but Laplace didn't care. He was extremely happy, and he spread his arms open in joy. Tarnek suddenly realized what had happened. Open hollow corner bracket no. Laplace had been locked away in the demonic sea for a simple reason: he'd abandoned the Guardians, hands-off policy, and he'd captured a skilled player in an attempt to steal his system and earn freedom through the qualification of a player. Laplace wanted nothing more than to explore beyond the demonic sea where he'd been born and escape from the strict rules of the Bureau. Very few knew of the incident, and it was only thanks to the fact that Clus had dispatched Lupi over quickly that things didn't get out of hand. The Central Bureau stripped away Laplace's High Guardian position and removed his authority over the system. Laplace had been forced to escape to the demonic sea since the fates of those whom the tower designated as aberrant were obvious. The Central Bureau had left him alone because it wasn't easy to interfere with the demonic sea, where the influence of the system wasn't great. If Laplace was laughing now, only a fool wouldn't know that things were going badly. Beyond the rabbit tunnel was the Sea of Time and Space, and the Three God Mountains where the Yellow Emperor slept. The Yellow Emperor was one of the few who could directly interfere with the system without needing the Central Bureau's permission. What if Laplace had made a deal with him? I think you're too late. Oh dear, what should we do? His wide smile was strangely horrifying as an intense wind blew around him. The system is being applied to new player, Laplace. Stats are being calculated. The skill directory is being organized. Powers are being schematized. A new title, one who has quit administration, has been created for player, Laplace. A new title, one who has instantly gained divinity, has been created for player, Laplace. It was an aura that no king of the demonic sea had. What's going on? Why you've become AP player? Lupi just managed to regain his balance and looked up at Tarnek with wide, trembling eyes. However, Tarnek didn't have the attention to spare. It wasn't that Lupi didn't know what was going on, it was just that the situation was impossible. Even though it was theoretically possible, in the entire history of the tower, a High Guardian had never become a player, much less an otherworld being. Ah, what do you think is going on? Laplace grinned as the blessing of the system he so desperately desired was fully applied and a status window appeared in front of him. You're all fucked now. He instantly attempted to activate the skill that was at the very top of his skill directory. Open angle bracket true body release close angle bracket. Boom. The middle-aged Baldy with bunny ears suddenly popped like a balloon. The demonic energy of chaos whirled in the sky, and a mammoth monster appeared. It was a colossal king of the demonic sea that dwarfed Nessie and Tarnek. It was so large that it seemed to fill the otherworld god's stomach. It hadn't been easy for Laplace to pull out his true body even in the demonic sea because it was too bulky and powerful. But now with the blessing of the system and the demonic sea acknowledged as his territory, it was no longer a problem. That was how much having the system's blessing mattered. This was what it meant to be free, even though it was annoying to be affected by the law of causality. Open hollow corner bracket it's easy to get rid of you uncute people. The large rabbit, Laplace, emitted waves of his will, as he shook his hand in the air. Crash! Although it seemed like he was simply waving his hand, the superior beings who could see the other side of the world saw the terrifying sight of the laws of nature shattering. His fingertips knocked over causations and truths like dominoes. Space returned to emptiness. Chaos and disorder crawled over their skins. Anyone who was swept in wouldn't just die, their souls would be torn into pieces and their entire existences destroyed. It was at that moment that the inversion of causation made Yi and Wu and the vampiric lord reappeared in the demonic sea, and they were shocked by the sight that met them. Open corner bracket what? Shannon exclaimed in astonishment. The other familiars were also silent. Laplace's hand was destroying everything, as though it were a wave crashing over a sandcastle. The monsters Laplace summoned, the chase team, and the special police unit that accompanied Tarnek were scattered into pieces without uttering a single scream. The army that roamed various dimensions and universes under the great demon king Tarnek Maxwell vanished in a pointless manner, Loopy among them. The infamous High Guardian who always ate whatever he desired shouted, I wanted to eat but I'm being eaten instead. I'm scared, but this is fun too. Boom, crash. Laplace's true body smiled in satisfaction after removing everyone in his way in the demonic sea and headed to Tarnek's body. Tarnek slowly crept back. For the second time since he'd become a demon king, he felt fear. He'd only felt this when he met the martial king for the first time, and it was a humiliation unbecoming of a demon king that he never wanted to experience again. Open hollow corner bracket no. No, open hollow corner bracket please become my liver. Laplace gripped Tarnek and tore him apart. Blood spurted out and turned the demonic sea red. Monsters from the depths of the sea swam up to the surface and ripped at the flesh. Ah! Tarnek's screams of despair filled the demonic sea. Open corner bracket that is on the level of the past greats close corner bracket Yi and Wu watched in shock as the High Guardian died and turned to Boo. Past great. Open corner bracket they're also called the Old Rulers. The vampiric lord appeared, cutting Boo off. They're the greatest of the otherworld gods. The owner of this stomach, the military king of totalitarianism, was also among them. Of course, that Laplace guy is way beneath him, but he's still among the top positions. The vampiric lord chuckled, adding that Laplace wasn't the second king of the demonic sea for nothing. The fact that Laplace was the second king of the demonic sea stupefied Yi and Wu more than anything else. There were 8 kings in the demonic sea. If the second one was this strong, then how powerful was the first? All he knew was that the first king wasn't the vampiric lord. And what's this about the military king of totalitarianism? He thought of the crawling chaos. That god was probably one of the past greats as well. He didn't understand where all these monsters were coming from. At that moment, Laplace turned to look at them after finishing his meal. Yi and Wu tensed. He released all his powers and gripped Vigrid, sky wings high behind his back. Suddenly, what seemed to be Laplace's face grinned. Open hollow corner bracket oh dear, you don't have to be that worried. No matter how hungry I am, I'd never endanger my savior. Yi and Wu was speechless. Open hollow corner bracket it seems like you've been swept up here. Ah, I'm sorry, you can go on your way now. The demonic sea stopped. Open angle bracket illusory change close angle bracket. Like rewinding a cassette tape, everything that had fallen returned to its place. The vaporized demonic sea filled up again, the destroyed monsters were put back together as they returned to their homes. The rabbit tunnel connected to the sea of time and space shut off and the unstable space settled. Laplace shrugged, as though giving them permission to leave. Yi and Wu watched him warily and tore the tutorial ticket. A red portal appeared beneath his feet, swallowing him and the vampiric lord. Open hollow corner bracket goodbye. Laplace waved his gigantic hand and watched them leave. As Yi and Wu disappeared into the portal, he muttered to himself, what kind of monster did I unleash on the world? Open hollow corner bracket I've always thought that you're an amusing friend. Laplace grinned again as he looked at the spot where Yi and Wu had disappeared. He'd heard Yvilk had taken a personal interest in Yi and Wu ever since the tutorial, and he could see why. He thought their paths would cross again because of their plans. Open hollow corner bracket then shall I move again? Yvilk keeps on hurrying me. Thump, thump. Laplace moved his great body to the location where his friends were probably raising a ruckus, the Central Bureau. He was going to visit his old job. The demonic sea trembled violently. In the meantime, the Central Bureau was in an uproar. Ding, ding, ding. Everyone, move faster. Find Laplace first. They had just received news that the chase team sent to take care of Yi and Wu's party and Laplace had been annihilated. The Central Bureau was under code blue. They quickly gathered a search team to investigate the situation with a chase team. Considering that Yi and Wu's party had managed to kill both two High Guardians, Tarnek and Lupi, the new chase team was composed of extremely powerful beings. Just what in the world? The bureau director Kloos looked at the documents required to form the search team and chase team with a faint frown. This was an unimaginable situation. Tarnek had once been a demon king who conquered countless dimensions and universes, and Lupi was a monster who ate gods and demons. Even though they were constrained by the system, it was impossible for them to be defeated so easily. However, they had died without even leaving corpses behind. Kloos already confirmed that the sheep and pig were gone from the Guardian Directory and the rabbit had grown abnormally large. He was at a loss what to do next. Is the heavenly world declaring that they'll do whatever it takes to descend to the lower world? Even at the cost of creating a shortcut? Kloos believed that Laplace and the army of the demonic sea were an advance party with the heavenly world standing behind them. He'd discovered that the Yellow Emperor's representative and incarnation, the snapping turtle, had put Laplace into the system. The heavenly world's gods and demons on the 98th floor frequently made many attempts to spread their influence in the lower world, only to be blocked by Alpharon each time. The Bureau supported Alpharon and piggybacked on his strength, while also actively preventing Alpharon from ascending to the higher floors. This balance between the three forces had lasted for thousands of years. There were times when it had been nearly ruined, like the Dragon Massacre and Lucifer's Rebellion, but it managed to hold together somehow. Still, it was evident there would be limits. Occasionally, there were complaints within the Bureau, who always had to be on the other side of history. It was also a wonder that the heavenly world hadn't tried anything too extreme yet, considering how furious they were. The more they expanded, the greater the pressure was. It had finally reached its limits and was on the verge of explosion. No one had known what that catalyst would be, except perhaps the heavenly world. While the ancients' gods and conceptual gods, who were seen as the most superior in their societies, stepped up to war against Alpharon, the heavenly world had found an ally in the demonic sea to help them directly attack the Bureau. They set forward two advance parties to strain Alpharon and the Bureau and push us into a corner with overwhelming strength and numbers. Kloos rubbed his face. I believed things would be calm for a while, thanks to the division within the heavenly world. Despite their great strength, the heavenly world had been bound to the 98th floor for a reason. They were not united. From the disorder in Olympus, the war between Olympus and L'Infernal, and the endless standoff between the Chan sect and Jia sect, the different factions of the heavenly world could never ally with each other. The conflict between each group, the strife within each society, and even the personal businesses of each transcendent meant that these individualistic characters would never submit to another's orders. But this time, even though Kloos didn't know how they found common ground, it seemed that they had banded together. Their spirit was overwhelming. It's been a conspiracy ever since Laplace's desertion of the Bureau up to this point. Setting the stage with unrelated incidents, pushing forward with their careful steps, this is a mysterious ability. Who was responsible? Who was plotting this? Kloos believed that a single entity was moving the heavenly world as one. Without a leader, things wouldn't have worked out so neatly. It was as though all their plans had been measured out with a ruler. The problem is that we have no idea who it might be. Who is it? Someone clever who knows the Bureau well and is in a position to know the heavenly world and Alpharon's temperament and each part's movements. Just then, a portal appeared in front of him and someone popped out. Director. He had cunning eyes and pale skin that made him seem like he would faint any moment. It was the High Guardian Hyang, the snake, who usually acted as his advisor. Where is Laplace? Have you found him? Hyang had been chasing after Laplace at Kloos' command. He was so crafty that it was hard to feel any attachment to him, but it was all the more reason why Kloos could trust him to separate work and personal matters. Fortunately, it seemed Hyang had finished the task he'd given him this time as well. Yes. But, Hyang nodded and trailed off. Kloos narrowed his eyes. He'd never seen Hyang hesitate like this before, and he thought he could see a subtle fear in Hyang's eyes. What's he doing? Laplace is headed for the brain. What? Crash. Kloos slammed his fist on the table and shot up. The brain Hyang spoke of was in the head of the dead otherworld god. If the stomach were a collection of what the dead otherworld god had eaten during his life, the head was another world where the god's vestiges were greatest. Since this was the vestige of a god who had observed the beginning of time when the first universe split through chaos, it would no doubt be dangerous for Laplace to dominate such a place. He was trying to become the otherworld god he killed. Laplace is now a player. If he tries to become the military king of totalitarianism, the balance of the tower will be destroyed. This bastard can't distinguish between what should and shouldn't be done. If an otherworld god, and one who had been one of the past greats, became a player, the function of the tower would be meaningless. The first disruption would be the hardest, and it meant that the tower would be invaded a second, third, and more times after. Soon, the tower would be filled with otherworld gods. After becoming the bureau director, Kloos learned the reason why the tower had been built, so he knew there was no way they could allow this to happen. The first promise the Trinity Wonders had made couldn't be broken now. It's not time for that yet. Boom! Kloos hadn't even finished his thoughts when the door to his office suddenly exploded, along with the entire wall. "Sir, take cover." Bloodied, High Guardian Landon, the Ox, muttered before he collapsed on the ground. He had taken his last breath. Landon, Kloos and Hyang stiffened at the sight. "Oh, I was going to give you a peaceful rest considering our past, but this only makes that harder." "Yvilk, hello, Director, isn't it the perfect morning for a walk?" Kloos' face was full of disbelief as he watched Yvilk step on Landon's body to get into the room. Yvilk fixed his monocle and smiled widely. The canines poking out between his lips looked sharper than usual. Behind him were the Dragon Diablo and the Rooster Lapis Lazuli, as well as a few other High Guardians and members of the Special Police Unit. There was a huge commotion outside as an intense battle raged, with both sides activating the system. It was an insurrection. Kloos finally felt like all of his doubts were being answered. "Are you the culprit behind all this?" It made sense if Yvilk had been responsible for involving the heavenly world, moving Laplace, setting up the demonic sea, and tying Alpharon's hands, and now he was trying to destroy the Bureau. Who else but the first Guardian, the one who had the position of rat, would be able to pull this off? "Oh, culprit, I just helped make things better for everyone." Kloos ignored Yvilki's words. "What are you planning?" "It's for the tower." "Tower? How funny. You messed up the balance that was barely in place and shook the system for the sake of the tower." "It is indeed for the sake of the tower. For the tower to not only remain as the tower, but also return to its original function, this is a necessary step. It's an additional operation so the first promise can be properly carried out." Yvilk added that he was being faithful to his duty as a guardian. Kloos gritted his teeth. He had an idea what Yvilk meant and what his goals were. He wanted to refute Yvilk since he had a totally different idea of what the purpose of the promise was, but he didn't think it was useful to try to convince him. Yvilk and his organization had already progressed with their big plans, and he was merely a naysayer, an obstacle who needed to be eliminated. Then I should become a proper naysayer. Kloos' eyes flashed. With a crack, something tore from inside his chest. He was attempting to release his true body. "Oh, dear, it seems you don't agree with our mission. What a shame." Despite what is said, Yvilk maintained an easy smile as he stepped back. Diablo appeared from behind him. He and Kloos were said to be the strongest among the High Guardians, and no one knew that he was the first demonic dragon to exist. "Director, I've always wanted to fight a proper battle of life and death with you." Rumble. The waves of strength the two released blew away the entire Central Bureau as the bloody battle between the tiger and the dragon began. "You have now arrived at Floor 0, the tutorial hall. You do not qualify to participate in the tutorial. You have been given the status of observer. Warning, your records show that you have already cleared the tutorial. The tutorial is a gate that tests those who wish to challenge the tower. However, if you interfere, you may skew the test unfairly. Please do not interfere in the test. If you do, you will receive a penalty. Warning, the tutorial is not suitable for you. If you remain here for a long duration, it may be detrimental to your accomplishments. It is recommended you return to your original floor. Warning, this." Yin Wu clucked his tongue at the messages that filled his vision as soon as he entered the tutorial stage. The Cheonwado guys put up with this to manage Orangdan. They must have given a lot of rewards to the people who came here. Yin Wu rethought his plans to spread Arthea's influence in the tutorial once it grew more stable in the tower. If something went wrong, it wouldn't be worth any advantages. But the tutorial will be completely shut down after this round. Once again, he was thinking something the Central Bureau would be angered by if they only knew. "It's been a while since I've seen this place." The ticket Laplace gave him allowed him to re-attempt the tutorial. It was a ticket that was sold in limited numbers for those who hadn't properly cleared the lower floors and wanted to start over. All the things that Yin Wu had accomplished and accumulated would disappear if he made a single mistake. Since he was already experienced and possessed many abilities, it was unlikely that would happen, but it was still dangerous. It was probably a small joke on Laplace's end, but Yin Wu appeared in the waiting room, where he had first arrived after walking through the gate from Earth. The dark and cramped interior bore down on him. 372, 88, 65_04. 372, 88, 65_03. Has it been about 2 weeks? Yi and Wu nodded to himself as he saw the counter. He had a little over a fortnight left. It was more than enough time to capture Akasha's snake alive and examine it. But, Yi and Wu turned the counter off and expanded his territory of recognition. I don't see Yvilk. The tutorial was under his jurisdiction, and Yi and Wu thought that Yvilk would come straight here after all the trouble Yi and Wu had caused. However, Yi and Wu saw neither hair nor hide of Yvilk. Had something happened? He decided not to think too much about it. Since Laplace was causing such a mess, even Yvilk wouldn't be able to focus on the tutorial. It was all for the best since he didn't want to be interrupted anyway. Whoosh! He unfurled his fire wings. First, he needed to get by this section of traps. You have entered Section E. This is the outer territory. Yi and Wu folded his fire wings and quickly left the tunnel. Clearing the tutorial again brought back a lot of memories. Open corner bracket. Were you too busy walking down memory lane to see the other challengers looking flabbergasted, Master? They were so dispirited. Ah, poor guys. Shannon thought of the challengers struggling among the traps and shook his head. They watched Yi and Wu sliding through the section with his fire wings with so much despair that he almost felt sorry for them. The thought that Yi and Wu was a novice like them probably made most of them retire immediately, thinking that the tower was full of monsters like him. Shannon thought it was worse to hurt the delicate feelings of the innocent newbies than to crush the stages and make the bureau suffer. That's why I did it. Open corner bracket. Why? Most of them will only be filled with despair after entering the tower anyway. Shannon couldn't think of anything to rebut that statement. He had also felt despair after bumping into a wall after becoming a ranker and dropping out because he couldn't pass the 50th floor. If that's all they amount to, it's better to give up and return home. Open corner bracket. I guess I don't have anything to say to that. Close corner bracket. Even though Shannon had jokingly called the newbies innocent, there weren't really any innocence among them. The fact that they qualified to challenge the tower meant they were quite well known in their home worlds or planets, and it was always easier to find immoral seekers of strength than not. Besides, Yi and Wu wasn't going to leave the tower alone, and his first plan was to close off the tutorial. If most of the challengers lost their motivation, it might turn out for the best. However, Yi and Wu hadn't only displayed his strength. There were a few with potential. He'd seen some people he thought about recruiting for Arthea, and he'd already sent Doyle a list with their descriptions. As soon as they cleared the tutorial, Doyle would start to scout them. Open corner bracket. That was fun. It's been a while since I was in the tutorial. I feel like I returned to my younger days. A hazy fog trembled next to Yi and Wu and Lana appeared, holding her spear. She looked relieved. She had led a large crew called the Blue Rose when she was still alive, but she always felt like she was being chased by something and didn't have time to enjoy things. After she was summoned from the dead, she spent most of her time worrying about Jung-woo, and this chance to remember her youth made her feel more at ease. Yi and Wu smiled at her and looked around when he realized someone was missing. Where's the vampiric lord? He had been looking for her since they came through the portal, but he hadn't been able to find her at all. He felt her presence in the outer territory, so he thought she was waiting for them outside, but he was surprised not to see her. She wouldn't have left without finding out where Count Ferenc was, nor would she have left Lana behind. At that moment, a voice made Yi and Wu turn his head. Open hollow corner bracket. Are you searching for me? However, he couldn't see anything at all. Open hollow corner bracket. What are you doing? Are you blind? Where are you? Yi and Wu looked around incredulously. He couldn't see her. Her voice sounded like it was nearby, but he couldn't locate her. He opened draconic divine eyes in case she was hiding, but he still didn't see anything. Open hollow corner bracket. You dimwit. Look below. Below. He looked down, but of course there was nothing there. He could only see his belt with Vigrid, the magic bayonet, and Karshina's dagger that he'd pulled out of subspace. Suddenly, Vigrid began to shake. Open hollow corner bracket. Why do you look so dumb? Yi and Wu's eyes widened. Are you? Open corner bracket. Kane, I think you're right. Lana laughed in disbelief. When he pulled Vigrid out of his belt, the shaking grew more intense and a dark haze floated up. Chh. The haze gathered and transformed into a fairy the size of a sparrow. It was so small that it was hard to recognize its energy, but the cold, sharp eyes were still the same. Why are you in that state? Open hollow corner bracket. Why do you think? Is it because of Alpharone? Open hollow corner bracket. HMPH. An annoying, impudent bastard. Yi Yanwu clucked his tongue to himself. He'd forgotten that since the vampiric lord had already finished exuviation and gained transcendence through her endless battle in the demonic sea, Alpharone's constraints made it impossible for her to enter the stage. Yi Yanwu had met Alpharone after inheriting the throne of death as well. Fortunately, he had managed to escape after tossing Alpharone to the progenitor gods and creator gods, but Alpharone would immediately appear once Yi Yanwu finished exuviation or gained transcendence. The only reason why he wasn't stopping Yi Yanwu now was that Yi Yanwu was in a gray area according to his standards. However, the vampiric lord was a different matter. She had the strength of a superior divine being, so it was only natural that she'd stand out, which was likely why she'd hidden her identity. She'd even asked the bureau for help because she didn't think it was enough. At that moment, Yi Yanwu felt a sharp gaze from the sky. A mysterious being is carefully watching you. A mysterious being is searching for something. It was different from the gazes of gods and demons. This one was filled with indifference and contained neither greed nor emotions. Alpharone, he was already looking here with his thousandly eyes. Had he felt something? The vampiric lord frowned in annoyance, but she didn't do anything just in case he recognized her. After a few suffocating seconds, the gaze moved on. A mysterious being turns to look somewhere else. Open hollow corner bracket ha. Her voice was filled with irritation. Open hollow corner bracket, he's an annoying bastard. Since I've come out of the demonic sea already, I'll stay here for some time. Yi Yanwu silently nodded. Vigrid was a holy sword with the vestige of many heroes. There was probably no better place for a spiritual being to hide. He was only worried it might be harmful for the vampiric lord because of its villain folklore, but she seemed to be fine. In fact, she looked comfortable. It works out well for me. Vigrid's strength will increase, so the longer she stays, the better. The deeper her vestige was engraved, the more the sealed folklores within Vigrid would awake. However, the threat of Alpharone looking at him while the vampiric lord was around still hung in the air. Fortunately, there were limits to his interference because the tutorial stage was like a hidden stage. The vampiric lord had probably figured that out as well. Open hollow corner bracket anyway. Were it the tutorial like you wanted? I did my best to keep my promise. She crossed her arms as she spoke solemnly. Now it was time to keep his word. Yi Yanwu nodded. Lana looked at the two with a nervous expression. Where was the father who left her and her mother when she was still too young? Open hollow corner bracket, where's the count? Yi Yanwu spoke in a low voice. The 77th floor. Open hollow corner bracket, what? The vampiric lord's eyes widened. Lana also turned to Yi Yanwu with questioning eyes. Your husband is on the 77th floor. He's Alpharone's captive. Clang, ha, ha. Along with the sound of a cold casing falling on his bloodied body, a cold voice that accompanied eyes that were even colder said, "This is the end, Jiang Wei." Jiang Wei's eyes shot open. The dream that he wished he could prevent forced him awake. Kya ha ha, he's up, he's up. Jiang Wei saw the person laughing giddily at him. It was hard to tell their identity because of the bandages wrapped around their body. He couldn't even tell their gender. Chills ran down his back at the overlapping voices. Jiang Wei remembered which player was supposed to look like this, Faceless, a super rookie. Just like him, Faceless had also gone into hiding for some time. However, they didn't have any connection with each other, so why was Faceless sitting next to him? Jiang Wei instinctively tried to move back. It was a habit he'd developed after becoming an archer in the tower because it was difficult to win without distance between himself and a target. That's enough. It would be in your best interests not to move any farther. Jiang Wei stiffened at the cold voice. Before he realized it, the bandages wrapped around his body and the ends aimed for his neck like they were ready to slit his throat. Faceless's eyes were so sharp that Jiang Wei wondered if this was the same person who'd just been giggling like a child. It was like Faceless had suddenly become a different person. At that moment, Jiang Wei managed to read the various energies swirling within Faceless' eyes. An archer needed to have keen eyes, and because he was the apostle of one of the greatest archers, he had the ability to penetrate into the abilities of his opponent. Faceless was a monster with thousands of souls forced inside and mixed up in him. However, among those beings was an entity that made Jiang Wei straighten his back. Long time no see, right? It was a low voice. Faceless smiled. Although it was the first time Jiang Wei had heard the voice with his ears, he'd heard the same voice many times through open speaking. It belonged to Qianhuado's master, the sword god. How are you alive? The sword god had been on the verge of death after Jiang Wei stabbed him in the back during the battle with the Summer Queen. Jiang Wei thought he'd died after being chased by Red Dragon. To think he was living like this. It seemed like he had already recovered his past strength, and perhaps had grown even stronger. I was lucky, and luck smiled on me again to let me rescue you like this. The sword god's voice disappeared and an exuberant voice emerged. Are you Flank? Of course. Impossible. Flank, the spear god who founded Qianhuado with the sword god and the martial king's little brother, was here. Jiang Wei couldn't believe it. Faceless became the sword god again and looked at him sharply. All kinds of strange things occur in this tower, so how strange could this be? Jiang Wei pressed his lips together. Faceless was right, he didn't even have to look far. His fate had been to die in a cold warehouse, but he'd come back to life with this magical power, and he'd even managed to meet his sister's enemy, Yi Wu, even though he'd been caught by some weird guy before he could finish the job. What do you plan to do with me? Jiang Wei closed his eyes. He was prepared for death since he was the main cause of Qianhuado's fall. He was the greatest enemy of these people, and in fact, it was a surprise that they hadn't killed him already. The only thing he regretted was not being able to kill Yi Wu before dying. He didn't know how he could face his sister. Haha, seems like you're mistaken about something. But something was strange. When he opened his eyes, Faceless was looking down at him with a lofty and self-righteous gaze. Those were the eyes of the sword god when he led Qianhuado. After that day, I died and was reborn. We don't kill like you do. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he made a twisted smile. We simply become one. Jiang Wei couldn't reply, and you are always welcome to join us. Jiang Wei didn't speak. Why did the "we" Faceless was talking about sound like a cage to him that trapped and nurtured monsters? Before that, there's something we want to suggest to you. What is it? It appears you have a grudge against the Shadow King. Is that so? How do you? Jiang Wei was about to ask when he realized it was a foolish question and closed his mouth. If Faceless had rescued him from the emptiness, it meant Faceless had been tracking Yi Wu for a long time. He'd probably guessed that they had history together. We happen to have some ill feelings for the Shadow King as well, so we want to work together. Even though we didn't get along in the past, we've seen that you are sufficiently skilled. You'll be a great help. Jiang Wei didn't reply again. But that doesn't mean we'll attack him immediately. Arthia already has more security than Fort Knox, and his whereabouts are a mystery, so it will be difficult to approach him. So, we're going to steadily eliminate the people around him. Just as he did, we're going to wear out his network bit by bit without him noticing and then attack. Only then will he learn the pain of losing a close one, won't he? So first, a cold look appeared in his eyes. We're going to assassinate the Martial King. Jiang Wei's eyes widened, thinking that he'd heard wrong. Assassinate who? The Martial King? Ha 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 ha. It was a laugh of disbelief. To Jiang Wei, killing the Martial King was beyond ridiculous. Although the Martial King was considered a king, he was really on an entirely different level from other kings. From a young age, his abilities and outstanding skills had allowed him to stand on equal footing with the millennia-year-old ruler of the tower, the Summer Queen, and he even managed to defeat her. Although he hadn't finished exuviation or gained transcendence, his abilities were like those of a mighty divine being, and he was the candidate most likely to triumph over Alpharon in this age. Jiang Wei himself had experienced the Martial King's obsessive pursuit after he killed one of the One-Horn tribe members. Even if the other 9 kings worked together, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything to the Martial King. How would Faceless get past the One-Horn tribe? And how would he deal with the head elder, who was also the blood-red philosopher? Furthermore, behind them was the Shadow King and the tower's most powerful clan, Arthia. The Martial King had also planted many seeds throughout the tower that would grow into bushes and forests around him. It was possible that challenging the Martial King might mean fighting the entire tower. To Jiang Wei, it was impossible to defeat the Martial King. Wasn't the Martial King your teacher? How ridiculous of you to say that. If it were possible, I would have done it already. Faceless just smiled at Jiang Wei's retort. Didn't I say that I'm trying to assassinate him? Jiang Wei realized that Faceless was serious. He frowned. If someone like the Sword God was this determined, he wouldn't have brought it up unless things had already progressed to a certain point. The Sword God probably needed Jiang Wei as a chess piece. But if it's possible, Jiang Wei knew if they succeeded, it would be a big blow to Yi Wu. How would the steely captain, who didn't even shed a tear when Jiang Wei's sister died, react if his teacher died? Would he cry? Or, if the Martial King can truly be assassinated, it won't be difficult to get into the One-Horn tribe's village. Then I'll be able to find what he's hiding. Jiang Wei already knew that there was something special to Yi and Wu in the tribe. He didn't know whether it was a person or an item, but he did know it was related to Heaven Wing. If he destroyed whatever it was, he'd be able to push Yi and Wu into a corner, just like Yi and Wu had done in the past. How? Faceless smiled when he learned Jiang Wei was convinced. His hunch had been correct. If his plan seemed somewhat doable, Jiang Wei would jump into it without any concern for his own safety. It was the reason why he'd put aside his grudges to rescue Jiang Wei. I'll show you our comrades first. Faceless took a step back. Then, the door burst open and people entered as if they'd been waiting outside the entire time. As soon as Jiang Wei saw the face of the first person, his eyes widened. Black Prince. The most elusive member of the Nine Kings, the leader of the violent God Brethren, was standing there. Open hollow corner bracket stop with the bullshit. The vampiric lord's face turned stiff. The energy surrounding her lashed around and a black haze gathered. The vampiric spirit appeared and growled as if it would swallow Yi and Wu. Rumble. The tutorial stage shook even more violently. Unlike the demonic sea, which was filled with scary and violent creatures, this was a place for novices. Simply releasing strength put the stage in danger. The monsters spread throughout Section E couldn't handle the vampiric lord's aura and dropped to the ground with foaming mouths. A mysterious being senses something. Open corner bracket M mother. Lana felt Alpharone's gaze again and quickly stopped the vampiric lord. They couldn't give him an excuse to come down. However, the vampiric lord was so furious that she didn't care. Her blazing eyes were trained on Yi and Wu. Isn't the reason obvious? But Yi and Wu was calm. His tone suggested that she ought to know more than he did, and there was even a hint of a reproach that she didn't know anything at all. The vampiric lord's sharp eyes shook for the first time. Open hollow corner bracket. Is it possible? Yes, that's correct. Yi and Wu nodded gravely. He ended up in that situation trying to save you. Open corner bracket. What are you talking about, Kane? Explain properly. Lana caught the unsteady vampiric lord and turned to Yi and Wu, speaking in a stressed voice. A long time ago, before you finished exuviation, you challenged Alpharone and were critically injured. Open corner bracket. Lana understood what Yi and Wu was trying to say. It was the great incident during which the king of vampires, the vampiric lord, died. At the time, no one in the tower other than the Summer Queen could challenge her, and all that was left was the 77th floor. She promised herself that she'd clear through it, finish exuviation and gain transcendence, and then challenge Alpharone. But it resulted in a terrible loss. The vampiric lord couldn't even touch him. From the beginning, there was nothing she could do to defeat Alpharone, who had the sun god's name. Fortunately, she escaped with her life, but the clans against her immediately began their assault, and the vampiric lord was chased to the tutorial stage. At the time, it was said that you died in the tutorial stage because people believed it was impossible for you to survive with all of your injuries. What did you expect those close to you would do? Open hollow corner bracket. Stop. The vampiric lord spoke in a fragile voice, trying to stop him from speaking any further, but Yi and Wu was still looking at Lana. They tried to rescue you or attack those chasing you. Count Ferenc tried to distract Alpharone away from you. Open hollow corner bracket. I said, stop. But it ended in his capture. Open hollow corner bracket. Stop. Crash. The vampiric lord screamed. The vampiric spirit thrashed around and hit Yi and Wu. However, his wall of souls blocked them and the vampiric spirit could only sweep the ground around him away, leaving a large crack that spread all the way to a forest in the distance. Yi and Wu finished his explanation to Lana while the vampiric lord glowered at him. Since Alpharone couldn't capture the vampiric lord, he took the count as hostage in case she returned. Open hollow corner bracket. You dare. Open corner bracket. You. How did you know that? Lana, it's what Jungwoo wanted to tell you. How can I tell Lana this? She'll definitely be heartbroken when she hears this. Even if she seems cheerful on the outside, she's frail on the inside. How many families and lovers did Alpharone split up with his decisions? Lana wasn't the only victim. More than a handful of people had challenged Alpharone during his millennia in the tower. The vampiric lord, Faust, De Roy, the Summer Queen, the martial king. Yi and Wu already knew quite a lot of them. Alpharone had eliminated most of them, but the ones who managed to keep their lives were baited into doing what he wanted. Lana was silent. All kinds of expressions seemed to flash across her face. Yi and Wu gave her some time to clear her head. She had gained many things from the tower, a lover, disciple, parents, but she'd lost even more. There was no way he'd know the depths of her pain. The vampiric lord glared at him. Open hollow corner bracket. What a sly bastard you are. Were you trying to pull me in like this for your own benefit? I won't say that didn't occur to me. Open hollow corner bracket U. Her clenched fists trembled. She wanted to expand the vampiric spirit and make it swallow Yi and Wu, but it was obvious Alpharone's gaze would return to them once more. However, Yi and Wu was assured that the vampiric lord had completely joined his side. I can't let her go when I've just met her. We have to have as many forces as possible, and I must secure the vampiric lord. It would be good to have the vampiric lord as his familiar, but that was difficult. But if he let her be, it was possible that she would leave. He needed a way to convince her to stay. The vampiric lord understood Yi and Wu's intentions, but there was nothing she could do. Even with her current status, it would be difficult to challenge the 77th floor. However, with Yi and Wu as an ally, her chances improved. He was the player who had the best chance of challenging Alpharone. There was also the Martial King, but she didn't like him since the One-Horn tribe members and vampires didn't get along. However, since Yi and Wu was the Black King's successor, they could work well together. In the end, the vampiric lord couldn't help admitting that she was a chained beast. She barely managed to restrain her fury. Open hollow corner bracket, can you swear on that? She wanted to make sure that he wasn't lying about Count Ferentz's whereabouts. If you wish, I'll make a pledge of mana. Open hollow corner bracket, that's sufficient. I also want to ask you one more thing. The tiny vampiric lord didn't hide her fearsome aura as she growled. Open hollow corner bracket, if you want to use me as your packhorse, you need to show your qualifications. You may be the Black King's successor, but I don't know you. What is your final goal? Isn't it obvious? Yi and Wu narrowed his eyes. It's to destroy the tower. The vampiric lord was speechless. And to do that, he lifted a corner of his mouth, exposing his canines. I need to kill Alpharone first. Is that sufficient, too? The vampiric lord nodded. Open hollow corner bracket, fine. Until we rescue the count, I'll be your dog. However, you must be careful not to show any weakness. My teeth are always ready to bite your neck. Close hollow corner bracket. You have allied yourself with player Erzabet Batory. If you break this alliance, you may receive disadvantages. As soon as the vampiric lord made her decision, they moved to a town of orcs in the middle of a forest. They venerate Akasha's snake like a god. They know it's possible to resurrect it, as well. This means they know a lot about the snake, and they may have more information. If there was anything Yi and Wu had learned, it was that the random information of the tower was actually linked together like an intricate web. Yi and Wu thought the orcs might know information about Akasha's snake like it was folklore. For that, he needed to secure the orc shaman who presided over the resurrection ceremony of Akasha's snake. Swish! None of the monsters could feel Yi and Wu moving because he had hidden his presence. Thankfully, the novices hadn't entered Section E yet, and no one would bother him. When they arrived in the orc town, Yi and Wu released his presence. It's a pain to pick out the orc shamans. Instead, he planned to gather all the souls in the town, not just those of the shamans. Death is with the orcs. A dark shadow instantly descended on the entire forest and quietly took their lives. The noisy orc town filled with thousands of orcs grew silent. The first spirit, CHH. After using the Black King's power to read the souls of thousands of orcs, Yi and Wu learned a surprising folklore. The Wheel of Dreams turned endlessly because only darkness existed at the beginning of time. That was how the folklore began. Dreams. As soon as Yi and Wu saw the word, he felt a strong sense of déjà vu. Was it only a coincidence that he was reminded of the special benefit Jung Wu had received, drawing dreams? One day, his brother had received a strange invitation from the future and entered the tower. You had to be the best among the best in your home world or planet just to enter the tower, and occasionally, a few outstanding people would receive invitations. However, since they were chosen for their potential and talent rather than their current abilities, they were given a special benefit to make the odds more even when they entered the tower. The special benefit his brother had received was dreaming of a dream. It allowed him to travel from the tower to Earth a maximum of twice a day. He had been given this benefit because he was still dividing his time between Earth and the tower, but when he decided to give it up after just clearing the tutorial, he received a new special benefit, drawing dreams, instead. Benefit: drawing dreams. The player can draw the world he wants in his dreams. Past, present, and future don't matter, and the answers you find can be used in reality. His brother hadn't known the significance of this special benefit until after his wings had been clipped and all his friends betrayed him. He learned that by inputting his vestiges in his soul stone, he'd be able to activate the benefit, and so he managed to create the diary. And Nemesis said he was in emptiness, the world of dreams, before he was resurrected. Most of Nemesis' abilities were related to the properties of emptiness. He could create emptiness and pull enemies into empty dreams. Yi and Wu thought this was important, especially since Nemesis had originally been Jungwoo's mythical beast. Jungwoo has been related to dreams from the start. Or possibly, even before that. The ancient dragon Kalitas said his brother's soul had returned to where it should have been in the first place, the Black King's darkness. If death were shaped from darkness, what if dreams came from the same place? Yi and Wu looked up at the sky. Hell has an enigmatic smile. The King of Seven Hells refuses to reply. Saitagarba clicks his tongue at your theory. Esma Diva says they are not qualified to tell you. All gods of death do not respond to your question. All demons of death say your inquiry is meaningless. I see. Yi and Wu thought that the half-hearted reactions of the gods and demons of death were a kind of confirmation. For these gods and demons on the path of darkness, it was difficult to speak of another path. In the past, they were hostile to the otherworld gods, who had different paths, after all. His theories seemed to fit together like the pieces of a puzzle. Chaos, disorder, death, blackness, dreams, these are all from the Black King's darkness. Twins had identical genes, and it was said their souls were connected as well. If Jungwoo's soul, which was closely linked to dreams, had returned to darkness, it meant Yi and Wu had been fated to become the Black King's successor, as well. Then what is the Black King to us? Yi and Wu's curiosity grew as he continued to examine the folklore. Folklores were a type of prophecy passed down through generations of orc shamans. In the beginning, dreams cycled endlessly in blackness. Then, light suddenly bloomed and the dreams awoke. Blackness began to fight with light to regain its lost dreams, and various objects flowed out from this time. All kinds of deaths, plagues, misery, and hell floated around aimlessly. One day, the things born from blackness began to think. Their father was too fearsome, and they might be swallowed by their father again. They needed to cage their father before he ate them. Fortunately, their father was mighty, but also dim-witted, so he didn't suspect anything. They planned to present him with an endless slumber where he could dream everything he desired. And so, they succeeded in pulling him down. However, sleep wasn't eternal, and when he realizes he is dreaming, he will open his eyes again. When blackness falls over the world again, the shell will be broken, and the world will return to the beginning of time. Dreams, blackness, light, sleep, Yi and Wu had a strong hunch that the blackness referred to the Black King. The parts about being brought down and betrayed by his children was similar to the descriptions of the Black King's legacies. Then was the light referring to a being who can injure the Black King or defeat him? Is that what it is? Anyone who could withstand the Black King had to be a conceptual god like Mother Earth or a progenitor god. They would have a famous legend, but he couldn't think of who it might be. I have no idea who it is. He thought of a few beings who ruled over light. In Olympus alone, there were Apollo and Prometheus, Asgard had Balder, and Deva had Indra, among others. But none of them seemed to be on equal footing with the Black King. Then, his thoughts turned to a different direction. The heavenly demon. The heavenly demon worshipped by the devil army chose to become evil to chase away all blackness and lack of enlightenment. He was commonly said to be the bringer of light for the world. His followers called him Bright King for bringing the sun and the moon. In the tower, the heavenly demon was the only transcendent who wasn't classified as either god or demon. No, that's not it. Yi and Wu shook his head. If the heavenly demon were such an extraordinary being, why was he trapped in the tower, and how come he couldn't awaken from his slumber? Furthermore, only the devil army worshipped the heavenly demon. It was true he was strong, but why would a being related to light choose to call himself a demon? That left only one answer: the tower. The tower's actual name was Obelisk, which meant it was the tower of the sun god. His theories progressed further. What if the reason behind the tower's existence is to trap or bind the Black King? It made sense. Why else would the otherworld gods search for the Black King in the tower? Why else were the gods and demons of death trying to carry out the Black King's will? It also explained why the tower's name was Obelisk. This is hard. However, this was just a guess, since he didn't know anything about the tower's creation or the Black King's identity. He thought perhaps Alpharon, the tower's apostle, might have answers. And the last sentence seems a bit strange. The shattering of the shell and the return to the beginning of time was a prophecy related to the Black King's resurrection from the emptiness. Then is Akasha's snake still here because it's searching for a shell in which its master can descend? He looked at the cast of the Black King. Despair, grief, fury. He'd earned despair as a reward for killing Akasha's snake. If that had been to create a body for the Black King to awaken in. That demonism guy also said multiple times that he's waiting for me to ripen. He frowned, thinking that the demonism was probably giggling in the sin of stone right now at the sight of Yianwu with so many questions and no answers. Still, this is progress. He thought it might be worth it to comb through the thoughts of all the orcs as he moved towards Akasha's snake's location. Swish. The orc town was quiet and devoid of life. Kia, B block it. There were already a few people at the nest. However, they couldn't avoid a difficult battle against the violent, massive creature that ate everything it came across. Ak, Hagel, Uniel, watch out, damn it. Yuha, don't leave, defend your position AAACK. Around 10 injured novices were either swept away by the lashing tail or swallowed whole. There had once been 50 of them, but they'd underestimated Akasha's snake. With their numbers, they would have had a fighting chance, but they chose the wrong location. Yianwu laughed to himself in disbelief, sitting at a nearby cliff to watch. He never would have lured Akasha's snake, which grew larger as it ate, near a swamp where a community of lizardmen lived. The novices had clearly been planning to get the snake to fight the lizardmen, but once it already ate them all, it grew too powerful for them to handle. They didn't research anything about the monster they're hunting and ran in blindly. There's no excuse. Yianwu didn't think he needed to rescue them. Even though they managed to enter the tower, the inability to come up with a basic strategy meant that they wouldn't get past the first floor anyway. They would only be prey for other players. This situation was for the best. I was wondering when to help Akasha's snake grow. Guess they did it for me. He'd been planning to make Akasha's snake grow as large as possible, partly to see it destroy the tutorial stage and partly to see what the snake actually looked like. He was glad that his workload had decreased. Akti, Maru, hold on just a little more. If we can go back. Two novices who were acting as tankers raised their shields with their teeth clenched. Yianwu could see another player in the back buffing them with all his strength. They crashed into Akasha's snake, and for the first time, the tankers successfully blocked it. In the meantime, the leader of the party quickly moved behind the snake's head. He was holding a sword that emitted a bright light. For a novice, he was acting quite decisively and quickly. The snake's vulnerability was the back of its neck, and it was now in danger. It was also exhausted, and it would die if it weren't careful. I can't let that happen. Yianwu grinned and tossed the corpse of an orc lord he'd prepared just in case to the snake. As it gulped down the corpse, a black light glowed from its scales. Clang! The skin grew tougher, and the sword couldn't penetrate it. Instead, it broke, and shock spread over the leader's face. And no, Samhaa! The two tankers shouted, but it was too late. The snake swallowed their leader. Crunch! Ah, no, even Elki. The rest of the novices lost all motivation, and the snake crushed them easily. The snake lifted its head high in celebration of its victory. Yianwu opened his subspace over the snake. Thousands of orc corpses fell like snow. Gulp, gulp. The snake looked around at first, wondering where all the food had come from, but it soon focused on devouring the corpses. Yes, eat and grow as much as you can. Yianwu's goal was to have the snake grow to its maximum and shed its skin. Then, it would awaken its holiness and regain its lost strength and identity. It would be sufficient for it to remember its forgotten past, and Yianwu would get the information he wanted about the Black King. Gulp, he smiled contentedly as he watched Akasha's snake eat as though it were starving. Open corner bracket shouldn't the Demon King's close shop at this rate? Sheesh, Shannon grumbled. The demonic society less than Linfernal greater than nods in agreement. The demonic society less than Jia sect greater than clucks their tongues, saying you're worse than they are. Many demons express their positive interest in you. A few demons are wary that their positions might be taken. Open hollow corner bracket is expected of the Black King's successor. The vampiric lord nodded in satisfaction. 368, 54, 08_59. 368, 54, 68_58. Ayak, what is this? Monster, shit, run away, how can such a thing exist in the tutorial? Disaster struck the tutorial stage as the mammoth snake that emerged from the orc village ate everything in its path. The novices clearing the sections ran away, sure that they wouldn't remain in one piece if the creature got hold of them. Keek, 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 Compounding the situation was that other monsters were also leaving their territories, and the sight of thousands of monsters and more than 1,000 novices stumbling over each other seemed to come straight from hell. From far away, Yi and Wu watched the situation in midair. Warning: you are interfering in the tutorial beyond what is allowed. You are advised to stop immediately. Warning: this is a gate that tests challengers. You are causing a grave disruption to their challenge. Stop immediately. Warning: you do not qualify to participate in the tutorial. You do not qualify to participate in the tutorial. Your level of intervention in the tutorial stage is extreme. Messages popped up endlessly, warning him to leave. Of course, Yi and Wu didn't even blink an eye. If messages like this could make him retreat, he wouldn't have messed up the different floors in the tower in the first place. Some messages warned that he would receive a penalty, but since he could control his thoughts separate from the system, it wouldn't affect him too much. However, Yi and Wu's expression was grave. He had been hoping for a situation like this to happen, but things weren't going the way he expected. Did Akasha's snake always grow like that? The snake was growing too fast. When first entered the tutorial, he had fed Akasha's snake tons of monsters to help it grow, but its current growth rate was unbelievable. Although it had only eaten a third of the monsters in Section E, it had already reached the size it had been when it fought Yi and Wu. He couldn't even imagine how large it would be once it finished eating all the monsters he was offering it. Did it drink an elixir or something? If that wasn't the reason, he didn't know what else it could be. From what he knew, Akasha's snake didn't have a hidden piece. The rulers of the lizard men, King Hargan and Queen Taragan, would help him grow the snake even more, but they hadn't even arrived yet, and Akasha's snake was finishing off the goblin, kobold, orc, and ogre territories first. It was possible that there was a hidden piece that Jungwoo hadn't discovered, but the speed of its growth was still impossible. Or has its limits been removed because Yvilk isn't here? That was the only guess he could make since Yvilk hadn't shown up even though he was making a mess of the tutorial. The pandemonium Laplace was causing was a bigger incident than he thought. For now, I should still keep moving it around like I planned. Yi and Wu was planning to get Akasha's snake to devour not only the monsters in Section E, but also the entire stage. It would reach its maximum soon enough. In the meantime, there was a pretty good harvest for Yi and Wu. His soul collection was steadily accumulating souls. The collection's capacity had grown so much that he'd wondered if he would ever fill it, and now he was finally taking care of it. Kikikikik, kikik. The spirit Guai giggled giddily at their growing numbers. Yi and Wu's shadow shook. So, what I have to do here, his gaze focused on the escaping novices, is separate the good from the bad. 359, 43, 21_69. 359, 43, 21_68. 12 hours had passed since he let the snake loose. Chomp, chomp. Akasha's snake ate the monsters in sections E and F, even sticking its head into crevices to get to the territories below ground. In the meantime, Yi and Wu watched the novices. Some moved cleverly amid the chaos and dealt with the situation well, and his spirit Guai kidnapped them so that he could use them in Arthea. The rest were just food for the snake. Some might look at Yi and Wu with contempt and say that he was cruel. But that's how the tower is. There's nothing glorious about it. The weak will always die and no one will blink an eye. He didn't particularly feel any remorse even though Jungwoo had been betrayed by people who shared the same view. Open corner bracket. They say people are hypocritical, but many demons agree with Shannon. A few demons observe your next actions. A message from Agaris has arrived. Message. Haha, you're definitely different from Jungwoo in this aspect. It's a wonder that you're identical twins. A message from Agaris has arrived. Message. So, come to me now. Agar's messages have temporarily been blocked with the user's authorization. Still, at least, I gave them a chance. Those who knew their place would retire and safely leave the tower. Those who didn't know what was good for them would just end up being swallowed down. Open corner bracket. Ah, yes. Sounds like a choice between being a canary tossed to a cat or thrown in a cold river, but if you say so. Have you ever considered that you might be a canary, too? If I give you to that snake over there, I'm sure it'll be quite happy. Open corner bracket. He. How can a small worm like me understand the vast depths of your mind? As Yi and Wu and Shannon bantered with each other, Akasha's snake finished eating and raised its head. Kiak, kiak. It was already hundreds of meters long. Its eyes flashed as it looked for more prey. It required a significant amount of energy in order to maintain its size, but apart from the hidden Yi and Wu, there was no food left in the stage. The snake couldn't endure its hunger any longer and began to eat everything it saw, even rocks, mountains, and dirt. Open corner bracket. A snake that eats a stage. A bit scary, Shannon sounded alarmed. The snake's loss of control over its hunger was a bit scary, and the sections disappeared one after the other as the snake's eating speed increased. Finally, the last section, Section G, completely vanished. The entire stage was gone. And what remained? Open corner bracket. That's a bit. Open hollow corner bracket. Interesting. Everything was black. Emptiness. It was emptiness, there was nothing there at all, like black paint had been spilled over a colorful painting. It was impossible to even recognize time or space. However, it wasn't like regular emptiness, which swallowed everything. Yi and Wu could still hold his existence together, and it was probably more accurate to call it a world of nothingness. Akasha's snake was now an extraordinary length of over hundreds of kilometers. The giants in Tartarus couldn't even compare. A demon of Niflheim, Jormungandr, observes Akasha's snake. Apophis carefully examines Akasha's snake. Akasha's snake bared its fangs now that there was nothing left of the stage. It was angry because it couldn't eat the emptiness. Its hunger only grew worse. Then, the snake bit its tail, forced to eat its own body out of hunger. Crunch, crunch. Open corner bracket. Dang, it's eating itself now. Even the greediest animals don't do that. Has it reached its limits? It was almost horrifying to watch the snake eat itself. Black scales scattered and blood flowed like a fountain. Its eyes turned bloody from the pain, but it didn't stop. Then, when only its head remained, the light disappeared from its eyes. It's starting. Yi and Wu noticed how the snake's head trembled. When D first cleared the tutorial, the orc shaman had extracted the snake's brain to resurrect it. That means the snake's true body is in the brain. Since it had grown to an exponential size, its true body had definitely realized holiness. Everyone, get ready. At Yi and Wu's orders, his shadow spread out and Shannon, Hanryong, Rebecca, and Dis Pluto appeared, all heavily armed. They surrounded the snake's head, prepared to attack at any time. No one knew what its true body looked like. If it had gained transcendence, they needed to subdue it immediately. Whoosh! Just then, the snake's forehead split and something popped out. The army of death tightened their hold on their weapons, but astounded expressions appeared on everyone's faces. Open corner bracket. What's that? They'd been expecting the true body to break out from the head and wreak havoc. Open corner bracket. Is it dead? However, the small snake lay still without moving. It was unexpected, and Yi and Wu wondered if it was a trick. However, the tiny snake wasn't even breathing. Yi and Wu spread his fire wings and approached it. Shannon and the others were about to warn him of the danger, but they stopped when nothing happened. The snake was really dead. Open corner bracket. Are we fucked? Shannon couldn't hide his disbelief. How could the snake die after that monstrous display of violence? How was it possible? If he had known, he would have captured it as soon as it had grown big enough. Was everything they'd endured to get to the tutorial all for nothing? There was no guarantee they could find a ticket for the next round, and since the stage was so ruined, it might not even have another round for a while. The other subordinates were all silent as well, but Yi and Wu stroked the corpse of the snake's true body. Unlike the dejected subordinates, he had another take on the situation. It occurred to him that there might be another clue in the death of Akasha's snake. He was about to pull out its soul when Nemesis suddenly appeared through the emptiness. Open hollow corner bracket. Master. He hadn't shown himself ever since Jung Wu's vestige body had fallen asleep. Without even finishing their greeting, Nemesis turned to the snake. Open hollow corner bracket. Please give it to me. Yi and Wu looked at Nemesis with a questioning expression. Nemesis continued in a low voice. Open hollow corner bracket. I was born from Jung Wu's special benefit and grew by eating his dreams. I used to be a dragon who lived in fantasies, but now I'm a dragon sleeping in dreams. If I eat death, I'm sure I will gain something. Yi and Wu realized that it was an obvious answer for Nemesis to eat Akasha's snake. Nemesis and the snake looked extremely similar, and just as Akasha's snake was the Black King's familiar, Nemesis was his. Akasha's snake had waited for the Black King, and Nemesis had waited for him. Now that Akasha's snake was dead, it wouldn't be strange for Nemesis to be reborn in its place. It was possible that the shedding of the snake's skin meant this. In fact, he was sure of it, even though he wasn't sure why. He nodded in permission, and Nemesis swallowed the true body of Akasha's snake without any hesitation. Crack. Nemesis' body began to glow, and he twisted as though he were shedding. The light expanded and swallowed Yi and Wu. Whoosh. When he came to his senses, he saw two gigantic eyes meeting his gaze. Yi and Wu instinctively knew that they belonged to the vestige of Akasha's snake. But it was filled with a clear energy that was devoid of the crazed violence it displayed earlier. Open hollow corner bracket master close hollow corner bracket. It spoke sadly to Yi and Wu. Open hollow corner bracket. You've come back. Finally. It was said. Akasha's snake resurrected endlessly as it waited for its master to return. It seemed it had confused Yi and Wu for the Black King. Open hollow corner bracket. I've been waiting for your return. Yi and Wu couldn't bring himself to tell the snake it was wrong. The longing in its eyes was too familiar, like his brother's eyes as he waited all alone in an empty house for him and their mother to return. Before he knew it, he was rubbing the creature's snout. His hands were tiny next to its massive size, but the gesture seemed to satisfy the snake. It closed its eyes with a smile, as though it were a puppy being held in its owner's embrace. Geeing. The cast of the Black King shook as though in response, and the vestige scattered into the cast. At the same time, messages popped up in front of him. Ding, ding, Nemesis has been upgraded to a legendary beast, Akasha's dragon. You have made an achievement that is not easily accomplished. Additional karma will be provided. You have acquired 300,000 karma. You have acquired an additional 500,000 karma. You have been awarded a piece of holiness. You have been awarded a hint of transcendence. You have attained the fifth element, Akasha. From now, you will be able to use the element of nothingness. Your level has increased. Your level has increased. You have gained the authority to use the Akashic records 3 times now that you have acquired the hidden piece in Akasha's snake. Will you access the Akashic records? The Akashic records are a multidimensional collection of information on events happening in all universes and worlds. They're also called the Void records. From what I've heard, they not only contain the secrets of the creation of the universe, they also have predictions of the end. Of course, the gods and demons who rule over omnipotence and omniscience would do anything to access this place, but no one knows how to get there. As a result, no one is sure if it even exists. Some say that it's a library that only special beings can visit, but I think it's a place that exists only in the imagination. If a place like that truly existed, and all events and fates have already been recorded, that means the universe is moving along a preset path. That would mean that Mom's illness and what eventually happens to her has already been destined. Then what would that say about my struggles to heal her? His brother called the Akashic records an imaginary place, a fantasy for magicians and alchemists always seeking knowledge. But even still, Jung-woo wanted the place destroyed. If all events were already predetermined, all results already recorded, then human life was in vain. It meant that there was no free will in the end. This was why Yi and Woo hadn't been that interested in the Akashic records. Although Jung-woo despised them, he thought it was a place that no one would ever find, unless one was at least a conceptual or progenitor god, or a being of that level. It's likely even they can't visit it. If they ever get a chance, they'll probably have a lot of restrictions. Otherwise, there would be no reason to fight Mother Earth or have enmity among the societies. There wouldn't even be a reason to struggle because of Alpharon in the first place, and none of the beings would be trapped in the tower. So Yi and Woo had believed that the records were only fantastical stories, and he never expected that he'd be given the right to view them. Even though he could only access them 3 times, it was the greatest reward he could ask for. Saranunos is shocked. Vimalasitra jumps up from his seat. Erlang Shen is suspicious of your reward. Thor looks at you in disbelief. He presents an agenda item to less than Asgard greater than using his authority. The Godly Society less than Dilmun greater than begins a conference about you. The Godly Society less than Asgard greater than approves a letter to be sent to you. The Godly Society less than Olympus greater than expresses hostility toward you. The Demonic Society less than L'Infernal greater than reacts joyfully. They deliver their requests as your ally. The Demonic Society less than Niflheim greater than suggests an exchange. The temporary ban has been released with Agar's authorization. A message from Agaris has arrived. Message. Damn it, what's so special about you and Cha Jung-woo to make these things happen? It's a thorn in my side that a bunch of gods and demons are already interested in you, but now you're gonna be overflowing with interest. Damn it. A message from Agaris has arrived. Message. Listen carefully. The 98th floor is in an uproar because of this. They're even talking about your relation to the crisis theory. So be careful, most will suggest an offer to you and you cannot. Agar's messages have temporarily been blocked by a unanimous vote of the gods and demons connected to your channel. A banned being protests from somewhere. Many gods show determination. They rush to create a list of what they can offer you. A few gods do not hide their enmity toward you. Many demons wish to be in the same position as you. A few demons wonder what turmoil will erupt from this reward. They lament the fact they cannot watch because of their current tasks. Erd and the other Norns watch you silently. The messages were endless. The channels felt like they were exploding, proof of how shocking the Akashic records were to the heavenly world. Every god and demon wished to access that place and search through the records to find a way to escape the prison that was the tower, and they grew even more desperate as a path finally opened in front of their eyes. Many gods and demons tried to connect Yi and Wu to their entire societies. The godly society less than Chan sect greater than suggests a secret deal. The godly society less than Diva greater than suggests a secret deal. They probably hoped Yi and Wu would use his viewing rights to look for the information they needed. They would offer rewards that were beyond a player's imagination. One of them in particular was offering something so unbelievable that even Yi and Wu thought they were crazy. The demonic society less than Jia sect greater than offers you the position of Tongtian Jiaoju. Many gods complain to the Jia sect. Many demons express hostility towards the Jia sect. What? Yi and Wu froze. The position of Tongtian Jiaoju was equal to the Yellow Emperor's. They were offering the highest position to a mere mortal. Even if the Jia sect had been leaderless for quite some time now, this wasn't a decision that could be made so easily. It meant the Jia sect would handle the law of causality required for Yi and Wu to exuviate and gain transcendence in the future. All the gods and demons were shocked. There hadn't ever been anything like this in history. However, it was proof of how invaluable the Akashic records were. Yi and Wu understood why Agaras had been so frantic to warn him. If anything went wrong with a transaction, he'd instantly gain powerful enemies. If he made a deal with one society, he'd become enemies with its competitors. So it's like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. The wonderful hand he was dealt could also lead to his destruction. All gods of death are curious about your decision. All demons of death are curious about your decision. The gods and demons of death seemed to be extremely eager to know how he'd react. Fortunately, none of them asked him to make deals with their respective societies, nor did they lobby him to form agreements with other societies. Open corner bracket, you're a total star. So what are you gonna do, master? Shannon asked. Next to him, the vampiric lord didn't say anything, but her eyes were blazing. She seemed to have a lot to say, as well. She probably wanted to ask him about Count Ferenc. Just when Yi and Wu was about to say something, something shook inside of him and burst out with a brilliant red light. Whoosh! It was the mysterious reward he'd been told would be useful to him someday. Li's fragment. His eyes widened. Li's fragment reacts to the appearance of the Akashic records. Part of the seals on Li's fragment have been released to summon the Akashic records to appear in another form. Li's fragment has ceased to exist. You have used one chance to view the Akashic records. The Changgong library is manifesting. As soon as he saw the name of the location that the spirit Guai had told him, he was already there. Swoosh! This is. A marble floor seemed to stretch out for infinity. On it stood extraordinarily tall shelves that were filled with an uncountable number of books. Vimalasitra is speechless at the overwhelming scene. Cernunos is extremely excited at the endless feast of knowledge. All the gods connected to your channels are shocked. All the demons connected to your channels gasp. The sight immediately called to mind a library, but it was nothing like an ordinary library. The domed ceiling seemed to cover the entire world, and ladders hung on the shelves hundreds of meters long. There were so many floors that simply looking at the spiral staircase that led up to them made one dizzy. Beyond that was an even greater sight. At the very end, where Yi and Wu's territory of recognition could barely reach, new shelves were appearing from blackness. New words appeared in books, recording events that were happening in real time as the number of books grew. Yi and Wu could understand why this place was called Changgong, which meant sky. It didn't seem strange that a place so vast would contain all the information of all universes and dimensions. So, the Changgong Library is another name for the Akashic records. Li's fragment had allowed the Akashic records, which was a basic collection of records, to appear in a form that Yi and Wu could access easily. The gods who seek knowledge are exhilarated. The demons who enjoy research are greedy for more knowledge. The godly society less than Asgard greater than is offering a new deal. The godly society less than Chan sect greater than urges you to quickly accept their deal. The demonic society less than L'Infernal greater than strongly requests the rights as your ally. Just as the pressure from the many societies was becoming too much, Yi and Wu heard a voice from up ahead. He raised his head. A visitor for the first time in ages. I didn't realize that someone was coming. Someone was looking from the banister of the spiral staircase over Yin Wu's head. It was hard to see his features because he was backlit by the lights of the ceiling, but Yin Wu had a strong impression of a mischievous smile. Someone's here. His eyes widened in surprise. The owner of the voice jumped over the banister and landed in front of Yin Wu. Even though it was a great height, the person's movements were agile, as though the library were protecting him. As soon as he showed his face, Vimalasitra groans. Cernunnos screams in disbelief. Prince Nezha shouts, wondering how that being can be here. Amun is furious. Many gods scream upon seeing the being. A few gods run away, saying it is impossible. Many demons bare their teeth at the being. A few demons have confused faces. All gods of death silently express hostility. All demons of death clench their fists at the unexpected encounter with their enemy. Oh, dear, you brought along a bunch of noisy visitors, too. This isn't some rowdy marketplace. How can you guys still be gossiping together? Sheesh, that's why you guys don't improve. Yin Wu felt like the being was reading everything about him. The being looked playful, but his autumn-colored eyes looked directly at all the gods and demons connected to Yin Wu as though they were standing right in front of him. All gods and demons firmly protest at the being. Geez, it's so loud. Don't you guys know it should always be quiet in a library? You vulgar fools. We don't take any solicitors, so go back. Although the being was speaking in a joking manner, all the channels connected to Yin Wu were immediately cut off. Yin Wu quickly examined his body to check for injuries. Oh, don't worry, it doesn't affect your body. I just temporarily paused the function. There's no need to have those voyeuristic bastards here, right? The being winked at Yin Wu. Now, he was wearing a black hoodie, jeans, and sneakers and was definitely speaking Korean. That meant he was from Korea on Earth. How could such a person be in the Chenggong library and laugh at the gods and demons like they were nothing? Who are you? Me. The man grinned. Ah, I forgot to introduce myself. You're Korean, right? I was so glad to meet someone from back home that I forgot. I'm Sun Ji-ho. Oh, but you won't know me with that name, huh? He lifted a corner of his mouth. I'm the heavenly demon. Recognize me now. Yin Wu couldn't believe his ears. What? Open corner bracket HHH heavenly demon. Open corner bracket no way. But it didn't seem like he'd heard wrong. Shannon and Hanryong gasped in shock. Even the usually impassive Boo and Rebecca were also surprised. The shadow under his feet trembled. The words the man had spoken were simply too shocking. The heavenly demon was a transcendent being who was neither god nor demon, neither dragon nor giant, and stood high above the rest of the heavenly world even though everyone was his enemy. In an almost monotheistic manner, the devil army worshipped him as the true god and regarded the other gods and demons as fakes. Because they were such fanatics, Yin Wu had believed all this time that the heavenly demon wouldn't be much different from his followers. Since the heavenly demon was supposed to be the only evil who had ever reached the heavenly world, Yin Wu was expecting a monster who could only destroy, a rabid beast who hated anything that tied him down. He'd always thought that the heavenly demon was like a great demon to whom even the demon kings would bow. He wasn't the only one who believed this. Most of the players in the tower all had the same impression, which was why the heavenly demon had a very small following. But this person is completely different. He looked so lofty, as if he had transcended everything. Even though Yin Wu was close to transcending and realizing holiness, the heavenly demon was like a faraway star. It was an impossible task, like reaching the sky from the ground by stretching one's arm. Yin Wu had no idea how great the star was. He could tell the general sizes of conceptual gods like Mother Earth and otherworld gods like the crawling chaos, and compared to them, it was safe to say the heavenly demon was a supreme being. Perhaps he's considered evil because the gods and demons can't reach him at all. Whether you were mortal or immortal, it was impossible not to be scared of an opponent so great that you couldn't even tell how powerful they were. The vampiric lord shook inside Vigrid, also shocked to see the heavenly demon. Well, but I like the name Bright King better. It's more lit. The heavenly demon joked with a shrug, not realizing how dumbfounded Yin Wu was. He seemed even more amazing because of it. It was difficult to maintain an easy attitude like that. You had to be confident that no one would disrespect you and that nothing was impossible. Most of all, you had to believe in yourself in order to be so carefree. Yin Wu only knew two people like that. Master, why did he see the martial King Nyu in the heavenly demon? And the Monkey King? To be exact, it was the Monkey King's exuvie that he'd absorbed, but the being was still quite similar to the heavenly demon. After all, the Monkey King was one of the many past lives of the heavenly demon, or one of his faces, as the devil army described it. Since they shared the same soul, it was natural their personality or the way they carried themselves would be similar. Now that I look at it, you smell a bit like me. Phew, seems like it's the monkey guy. Dang, you ate such a rotten one. Didn't you feel sick afterwards? Although Yin Wu had no idea why the heavenly demon was in the Chenggong library, he became sure of one thing: the heavenly demon had no plans to fight him. In fact, he seemed happy to see a visitor, and his joy seemed to be multiplied by the fact that they were from the same planet, and the same country, and that they both knew the Monkey King. This was why Yin Wu gathered the courage to ask a question. Weren't you asleep? Asleep? The heavenly demon cocked his head and burst out in laughter when he realized what Yin Wu was talking about. Ha ha ha, I guess it can look that way. They must be thinking of me as some sleeping beauty below, huh? I didn't even think of that. He giggled, then shrugged at Yin Wu, who was standing still with a serious face. My true body has indeed closed its eyes, so they're not wrong, but as you can see, my mind has been here for a while. So, you didn't abandon the devil army? The devil army? Oh, those crazy guys. Yin Wu was speechless. It's every man for himself. I didn't abandon them. Open corner bracket. Wow, how can he be so ruthless with his followers? He's amazing. Close corner bracket. Shannon was shocked, and his impression of the heavenly demon was shattered to pieces. If a god denied his followers, it meant he was denying himself. In most cases, the power and strength of a god came from the quality and amount of faith the followers gave it. If he denied them, he was also denying their faith, so his power and strength would inevitably decrease. However, the heavenly demon didn't seem to care. It was a confidence that his power and strength didn't rely on his followers' faith. Well, it might seem strange for me to be saying this, but I've done all I can for my followers from here, like the Exodus, where I headed for the Sky Mountains and then returned to this place, the Ark. When the heavens and earth were disconnected, I no longer had any responsibility over humans. Li and I didn't want to be bound to legends anymore. Yin Wu didn't understand everything the heavenly demon was saying, but he could see that he hadn't left the devil army because he disliked them. He was more like a parent who wanted his child to be independent. Even if the child walked a twisted path that he didn't approve of, he firmly believed one day, the child would return to the right path. The attention the head bishop and kindred want so desperately, they were likely wrong from the beginning. The head bishop and kindred wished for the heavenly demon to guide them again, and when he didn't respond, they tried to become one of his faces and steal that power. Then, when that failed, they gave up on the heavenly demon and chose the great sage's brothers, the 7 great demon kings, in order to scheme something. But now that Yin Wu thought of their actions as a result of a misunderstanding of their parents' intentions, he felt some pity for them. Anyway, if they've established their fundamental belief to be evil and not light, I hope they keep walking that path. That's it. It occurred to Yin Wu that this might be the best stance a god could take. This library isn't like what people think, it's not that grand. It just records events happening everywhere from the beginning of time to the present and the end. That's all. The heavenly demon began to explain how the library was set up. Yin Wu turned to look at the direction the heavenly demon was pointing to. But then, everything might be messy and disorganized, like your little sister's room, right? Yin Wu didn't speak. That was supposed to be a joke. Wasn't it funny? I only have a brother. Oh, really? Damn, I need someone to relate with me on this. I know, because my youngest sibling is a girl. Her room was a pigpen. It's just like this place. The heavenly demon had siblings. Yin Wu wondered what she was like for a moment. Anyway, when you try to look for something, you can't find it, and only weird things appear. And the law of causality system, which is the database here, might have errors. So, I classify and organize it like a drive optimizer. In other words, he was the librarian. He suddenly clapped, and books on the shelves slid out and quickly moved to other locations. Yin Wu watched with interest as he stood in front of a shelf. Books were organized in lists that the heavenly demon had written and stuck onto the shelves. Time, history, people. It was almost wondrous to see them all placed in alphabetical order. Of those, one title stood out. Tower. Year 5211, the first month. Event report. Year 5211 was the present. Yin Wu pulled it out and opened it in the middle. He saw empty white pages, but black letters began to appear at the top of the page. The effects of dragon's knowledge allow you to read the words. He could instantly understand what was written in the book. Along with the appearance of the floating castle, the standoff between Arthea and hostile forces that began on the 52nd floor. Faceless and the Black Prince are definitely planning something crazy. But that's why it'll be fun. There aren't many places left to hide from Mother Earth. Now that there aren't many survivors left, the suggestion to leave the skies. It was a disorganized mess since events were being recorded as they occurred. Books were probably divided into sections after they filled up. It took him some time to understand what he was reading because the sentences were out of order. But three main writings stood out. The first was Arthea's current situation. They were fighting to take control of the 52nd floor on his orders, and the second recorded the thoughts of the missing bow god Jiang Wei, and the third was concerned with the whereabouts of Olympus survivors. His eyes widened. He had thought Fant might have killed Jiang Wei, but instead, he was alive and in contact with Faceless. Why were two of his enemies meeting? The appearance of the Black Prince was also unexpected. They were definitely plotting something, and the truth came out quickly. They were planning to make an attempt on the Martial King's life. It was impossible, an act of suicide. He had no idea why they would even have such thoughts knowing how strong the Martial King was. As for the survivors from Olympus, when he skimmed over the book, he could see that they were still running away from the Titans and Giants. Many seemed to be injured, he could almost feel their fatigue through the book. Thankfully, Athena and Hermes were still alive. But leaving the skies meant they'd throw away their divinity and live as mortals. It was how the Protogonoi tribe in the Elohim had been created. They were in so much danger that they might have no choice but to abandon their pride as gods. When he discovered their location, his eyes widened slightly. Erebus. It was the territory of the underworld that was far below even Tartarus. Most people didn't even know whether it existed. If they were truly there, it meant they were standing on the edge of a cliff. They would have difficulty maintaining their holy power there since there were limits to how much faith they could collect. It was possible that they would die if they stayed, and he understood why they were discussing leaving the skies. Each piece of information was necessary. He continued to read, wanting to know more, but it became impossible. The effective, dragon's knowledge, has ended. You cannot read the words. You cannot view any further. If you wish to view more, you must be qualified for it. The words looked like squiggles again. Yin Wu looked at the heavenly demon frantically, hoping he'd tell him how to read the book. I don't mind telling you, but it'll use up the time you're allowed to stay here. And you have a limited number of visits, right? Think of that as a sneak peek. The heavenly demon spoke firmly, as though he knew Yin Wu's thoughts. Yin Wu pressed his lips together. Jiang Wei's scheme and the whereabouts of Olympus survivors are important, but he tried to organize his priorities. He was only allowed to visit the Chang'an library 3 times, so he needed to use this time effectively. What's most important to me is, his eyes flashed. The path to darkness. The identity of the Black King. Now that he was here, in the library with all the knowledge of the universe, he couldn't miss this chance. From the very beginning, his motive for climbing the tower had been to find his brother's soul. His other companions were important as well, but nothing was more important than this. Furthermore, information about the Black King was probably expensive. His 3 visits might not even be enough, so he needed to get started. He could stop Jiang Wei and Faceless, plot as soon as he finished his business here, and it wouldn't be impossible to find the survivors from Olympus even without the help of the library once he exuviated and gained transcendence. In the end, he cut off all lingering attachments and finished clearing his mind. Watching Yin Wu's eyes darken, the heavenly demon grinned. I guess you've decided. Ask me what you want to know. I don't usually do this, but it's fine since you're the first person from back home I've met in a while. Yin Wu thanked the heavenly demon and asked what he wanted to know most. Can I have information about the Black King? Huh, what? The heavenly demon seemed stunned. Yin Wu wondered if he didn't know about the Black King. I don't know who he is exactly, but from what I've learned, the Black King is a type of progenitor or conceptual god linked to death or dreams. No, I'm just curious why you're looking for him. I know him well. There's no oldie like him. I finally found it. Yin Wu clenched his fists, thinking things were finally going smoothly. How could I not know him? The heavenly demon smiled mischievously as he continued, I was the one who stuck him in emptiness. Yin Wu, Shannon, Hanryong, and the vampiric lord all looked at the heavenly demon in shock. But the heavenly demon just shrugged, as if he didn't know what the matter was. This reaction shocked Yin Wu even more. From what he knew, the Black King had always been a respected figure to the gods and demons and a father figure to the otherworld gods. He assumed the reason he couldn't identify the Black King was because he was a progenitor god like Mother Earth, but even an even more supreme being than she was. But the heavenly demon had been the one to exile him into emptiness. He suddenly remembered the folklore passed down by the orcs. In the beginning, dreams cycled endlessly in blackness. Then, light suddenly bloomed and the dreams awoke. Blackness began to fight with light to regain its lost dreams. A light had suddenly appeared in blackness. His guess that the light was the heavenly demon was correct, after all. Why do you look so surprised? Is it your first time seeing a celebrity? The heavenly demon smirked and swept his hair back. His tone and attitude reminded Yin Wu of the Monkey King. Well, to be exact, I was the one who rendered him powerless, and the ones under me stuck him into emptiness. But it's the same thing, right? Yin Wu was speechless. Thanks to that, I lost all my strength and was forced to rest. That's why my mind is in the Chenggong library. I need to learn more about Gnosis. Yin Wu had no idea what Gnosis was, but he felt the fog in his head clear. Then the tower is. Shish. The heavenly demon put his finger to his mouth and cut Yin Wu off with a grin. That's enough with the details. Can you see this? The heavenly demon lifted his arm. A faint iridescent light flickered, revealing white chains. They looked like the same chains on Yin Wu's arms, except for the color difference. What is that? Divine iron, also known as the law of causality. Restraints that bind all immortals and mortals in the tower. Does it make more sense if I call it the system? Yin Wu was shocked again. Divine iron, law of causality, and the system, these all referred to the same thing. He hadn't known the law of causality that bound the beings on the 98th floor also applied to players as well. No, I suppose it's obvious, in a way. The system bestowed strength to challengers who wished to climb the floors. However, if the system disappeared, all that strength would freeze. In a way, it was apt to call it a restraint. The stronger a player grew, the more they would be shackled to the system. It gives the weak a chance to become strong, but also limits them at the same time. And when one becomes a transcendent being, the system will be in complete control. Is it like a leash to curb people that can't be handled? It was something that could limit even the heavenly demon, who was powerful enough to defeat the Black King. The tower wasn't what it claimed to be, at all. It was a prison where the strong could be restrained. The players who challenged it were the strongest of their home worlds. The tower lured them with opportunities to become stronger and reach godhood, and then it trapped them. Who could have created this trap? He couldn't imagine a being so supreme they could trap the Black King and the heavenly demon. He wanted to ask if his guess was correct, but he swallowed his words. I can't. His question would only bind the heavenly demon more tightly. The heavenly demon grinned as though he could read his thoughts. You probably want to learn everything, but there's no need to hurry. The higher you stand, the more you'll be able to see. You probably already see a lot in your position, and you'll open your eyes to see more in the future. He crossed his arms. But to look for the Black King. I see. You're the current Black King's successor. Yin Wu took a step back. The heavenly demon had sealed the Black King in emptiness, so it was natural that they would be enemies as well. What are you so scared of? You think I'd hurt a kid like you? Yin Wu didn't speak. Nah, I don't have any hobbies like that. Harassing a little kid isn't right, why would I do that? But the Black King might awaken because of me. You got it all wrong. Even though I fought the guy, we're not enemies. I just beat him up because he couldn't get himself together. If he awakens, that's part of the universe's process, so I have no plans to stop you. Well, of course, there's the danger of the universe ending. He raised a corner of his mouth. And I don't think the world I've formed so far is that weak. Everything goes according to the ways of nature. Yin Wu still didn't understand what he was saying, but he could see the heavenly demon was proud of the path he'd walked on, firmly believing that no one could destroy what he'd achieved. His confidence in his accomplishments moved Yin Wu. Only the assured could smile like the heavenly demon. Could I be like that someday too? Yin Wu wondered if he would ever be like the heavenly demon. After his brother had gone missing, he'd been constantly hounded, and that smile seemed out of reach. Zheng Wu. Yes. The heavenly demon resembles Zheng Wu. The heavenly demon continued smiling in a dazzling manner as he pointed at a corner. Head there. You'll find what you're looking for. Yin Wu nodded in response. The archives that heavenly demon indicated were in the depths of the Chenggong library. If the heavenly demon hadn't guided Yin Wu, he would have never found it, as it was another room separated by a wall from the rest of the library. This is the first-class secret section. You lack viewing rights. You cannot view this section. You have been given permission to view with the authority of a special class librarian. One of the rewarded viewing rights will be used. Usually, this isn't a place you can visit since you haven't exuviated or transcended yet. Yi and Wu looked around at the books. They were all different colors. Some exuded blackness, while others glowed with a blinding light. He could feel a divine energy from them. But since my potential future opponent wants to see, I thought I'd be generous. The heavenly demon left after patting Yi and Wu's shoulder, saying Yi and Wu could look around until he used up all his viewing rights. Swish! The vampiric lord came out of Vigrid and stiffened as she scanned the archives. Open hollow corner bracket are these detailed records of the beginning and origin of time. This place must be restricted even to creation gods or gods who are ranked highest in their societies. And yet, the heavenly demon had opened this location easily and simply with his authority. The vampiric lord said to Yi and Wu with a grave face. Open hollow corner bracket Cain, the heavenly demon is definitely a greater being than we ever imagined. Someone who looks down at beings like Mother Earth and the crawling chaos. Don't ever turn him into your enemy. Shannon, Hanryong, and Rebecca had also come out and nodded in agreement. Being magnanimous to someone who might be your opponent one day could only come from an absolute confidence that no one could defeat you. It wasn't even like the heavenly demon was arrogant or pretentious. They were scared of him because they didn't know how to fight him, assuming that they would inevitably clash after Yi and Wu managed to retrieve the entire legacy of the Black King. Open hollow corner bracket, but on the other hand, this is an opportunity for us. All the secrets you've been looking for will be in here. Right now, let's not think about anything else and just focus on that. All right, let's do it. Yi and Wu used all his familiars to scan through the archives. They didn't have much time, so he wanted to learn as much as possible. The path to darkness would most definitely be in here. Open corner bracket. Damn it, who would have thought I'd be reading books now when I never read them when I was alive? Shannon grumbled as he pulled out a book. He could read the words thanks to the viewing rights, but they still looked like black scribbles to him. He felt a migraine coming on, and he had no idea what he was reading. When he glanced to his side, he saw that Hanryong had taken a seat, his nose deep in a book. There were already 6 books stacked next to him. Open corner bracket. You're this type of guy. Hanryong didn't reply. Open corner bracket. I thought you were just a fighter. Shit, I'm going to be compared unfavorably to you now. No matter how much Shannon complained, Hanryong didn't budge. He seemed to enjoy meditating during his free time, and it looked like he enjoyed reading as well. Shannon sighed and looked around. Rebecca, who had been an apostle, was focused on her book, and the vampiric lord was flipping the pages of a book with a studious expression. Boo was acting insane because he could now read the forgotten records, and the other subordinates and spirit guai were busily reading on Yi and Wu's orders, even though they didn't understand anything. And Yi and Wu. What? Open corner bracket. Nothing. You just look really human for the first time. Yi and Wu had stopped reading and was rubbing his eyes. He felt Shannon's evil grin and frowned. Shannon just smiled cheekily, and Yi and Wu lifted the book again. Deep creases appeared on his forehead. Unlike his bookworm brother, he never had a thing for books. Time difference. Yi and Wu wasn't just having trouble reading. He was also focused on analyzing and organizing the information his subordinates were absorbing. With the structure of Dragon's knowledge and his connection to Laputa, he managed to learn a few things quickly. The first was the Black King's identity. Just as Mother Earth had many names, the Black King did as well. But most of them were vague metaphors. Great Crevice, Egg of Chaos, Endless Whirlpool, the one in the boiling abyss. None actually provided a real identity. It was because he had already existed even before the universes and dimensions were born. He wasn't tied to space and time and transcended everything. He was considered blind because he could see beyond seeing. He was called dull because he could think beyond thinking. He was an unpredictable being even to the gods and demons and the truth-seeking dragons. It was no exaggeration to call him the void that existed before the universe began. The heavenly demon was different. He also had a lot of titles, like the Light of the Beginning, the One Who Exists on His Own, Ahura Mazda, Mitra, and Varokana, to name a few. However, they were clear and precise. All legends or folklores had traces of him. In the legend of the Chan and Jia sect, Swerin handled fire and gave knowledge to humans. In the Olympian legends, civilization began when Prometheus gave fire to humans. Most legends began with the lighting of fire and the disappearance of darkness. Even the universe began with the faint explosion of light. Darkness represented chaos, ignorance, and fear of the unknown, while light represented civilization that defeated fear. The heavenly demon was the spark, the light. Blackness would disappear in the face of a great fire. Knowledge and wisdom defeated disorder and ignorance. However, blackness always existed and waited for the fire to be extinguished. Fear of the unknown always lurked around. This meant from the legends of creation to the present, the standoff between the Black King and the heavenly demon never ended, even though one of these characters was trapped in emptiness and the other in the Chenggong library. But they're always attempting the Black King's resurrection. Kronos, ruin and Lucille falling from the skies were incidents that stemmed from attempts to awaken the Black King from emptiness. It was the same in the lower world, where there were followers of the Black King like Faust and the Vampiric Lord. Secretive groups and players that chased after the Black King's power still existed, Yi and Wu among them, and as long as they were around, the Black King's power wouldn't disappear. This is crazy. He felt shivers down his back because it felt like he'd peeked into another side of the universe. Why are Jung-woo and I involved in this ridiculous business? The thought suddenly occurred to him. Why were a pair of ordinary twins swept up in a fight between two cosmic beings? They never had any intention or even thought of interfering with the Black King or the heavenly demon. His brother merely wanted to heal their mother, and he wanted to avenge his brother. He just didn't understand. Was there a secret to their birth they didn't know about? Damn it. Thoughts of their father flashed in his mind, but he quickly shook his head. This was also a secret he'd uncover if he found his brother's soul. There was no need to think about it right now, and there were other matters he was curious about. After the creation of the universe, how did gods and demons appear, and what separated them from otherworld gods? Why was the tower built, and why were transcendent beings trapped inside? What was the identity of the beings who brought the Black King? You do not qualify to view this section. Will you use a viewing right? But even those questions weren't important. As soon as the time was over, he used his second viewing right without any hesitation. I have to find the path to darkness, even if I use up all my viewing rights here. To do that, he needed a better understanding of the Black King. Of course, there was no need to learn everything about him, and Yi and Wu already knew what he should focus on. The revelations. It was the original copy of the Emerald Tablet. It was something the crawling chaos said he could never give him. If Yi and Wu possessed the object that contained the records of all universes and dimensions, the beginning and end, history, and records of space and time, wouldn't he understand the Black King and the path to darkness? He would not only learn how to use the cast of the Black King, but also the Stone of Sin. You have used a viewing right. The database of Revelation's original copy is being retrieved. The appearance of the archives around him changed, revealing a new form. A papyrus appeared. It seemed so fragile that it looked like it would crumble if he touched it. At that moment, the Stone of Sin in his heart trembled, as if urging him to hurry and take a look. When he touched the papyrus, it trembled. Dust floated to the ground. This was it. He could sense it in his gut. He pulled it out. You have peeked into a part of the forgotten secrets of the beginning. Your level has increased. Your level has increased. You have used your last viewing right. You have learned a majority of the forgotten secrets of the beginning. Your level has increased. Your level has increased. Yi and Wu read the revelations like a madman. He didn't even know how much time had passed. Thanks to this, his soul grew out of control, like it had been given vitamins. The Stone of Sin tried to adjust to it, and the draconic, demonic, and divine factors all responded to the modifications actively. Crack. When he reached his limit, hard dragon scales grew along his skin, and waste leaked out between them. Bit by bit, his exuvie was falling off. It was the beginning of his exuviation. The sixth step of the awakening is being attempted. Your draconic, divine, and demonic factors are combining to transform into a new trait. Metamorphosis is beginning. The sixth step awakening has been released. Power. Illusory emission. Illusory emission. Description. The ancient dragon Kalitas set up an 8-step process to help the contractor adjust to the dragon body quickly. This is the sixth step. The elements of your dragon heart and mana stream you can use through the connection combine to temporarily project onto reality what is in your mind. Barrier building. Anything is possible in an illusory world. However, it's also a dangerous place that others can easily interfere with. This option prevents the destruction of your illusory world and strengthens your mentality. You can then influence external reality and create your own perfect reality in ideas while your mana stream moves. Illusory activation. The effect of reality in ideas will help your thoughts take form in the physical world. The quality of the illusory barrier depends on your magic power and imagination. The better you can project your mind, the stronger your will in the outer world will be. When Yanwu opened his eyes again, he felt scales covering most of his face and body. They were no longer dark blue but a shiny black color. The red color that occasionally glittered on the surface added a touch of eeriness. Most blades would probably bounce off of him now. His larger and sturdier dragon heart sent magic power and oxygen throughout his body, and his more agile body contained massive potential, like a volcano about to erupt. However, what made his heart beat faster was the shed skin that lay on the ground. I succeeded in shedding. Yanwu had never attempted anything past the 5th step of the awakening and only focused on improving his abilities because the level of difficulty starting with the 6th step grew exponentially. If everything up to the 5th step is centered on training and awakening as a dragon human, from the 6th step onwards, I will begin creating a new body and upgrading my soul to become a true member of the draconic species. In other words, the steps below the 6th step were just preparatory ones to help him get started as a member of the draconic species. Once you reach the 6th step, things would drastically change until you reach the 7th step to reform your body and soul before attempting polymorphing. He had to mold or go through metamorphosis first to raise his soul to the level of a transcendent being. He eliminated all the waste from his body, rearranged his bones, and even completely changed the structure of his genes. For a dragon human, the process of shedding meant removing your last human traits. From the moment that humans were born, it was nearly impossible for them to become dragons, which were beings equal to gods and demons. They could borrow the strength and powers of the draconic species, but becoming one was something else altogether because it meant changing species. It was different from simply exuviating or transcending. The last one who attempted this process had been the last king of the dragons, Kalitas. Thanks to his research on Hakma, the collection of knowledge that the dragons possessed, he managed to create an 8-step system. This legacy was so powerful that Jungwoo had almost instantly climbed to the highest position in the tower. Thanks to the new discoveries he'd gained from his exchange with Grand Demon Duke Agaras, Yanwu's growth system found new possibilities, helping him create a path that no one in the tower, or even the universe, had ever heard of: the demonic divine draconic body. The demonic, divine, and draconic factors found an excellent balance, transforming into a new trait that allowed Yanwu to possess a new body that neither Kalitas or Jungwoo would have ever imagined. It was a near-perfect body that even gods and demons drooled over. He ran the risk of losing the potential of his body and his soul, but he no longer worried about that after gaining the throne of death. Swish! He felt the pressure sealed inside him releasing easily with a deep holiness and powerful energy. You have met the conditions. The sealed power, Death King manifestation, has been unlocked. The sealed power, opening Hell's door, has been unlocked. Most of the seals have been unlocked. Your current condition is precarious king of the underworld. You have now met most of the basic conditions for sitting on the throne. However, there are still groups that question your legitimacy. Prove that only you are the true owner of the throne to the heavenly world. Continue gaining victories in battle and build up karma in death and fighting. You can now write your very own legend. Yanwu realized that his divine power had been completely released. He had grown new wings for himself. He still had a long way to go to catch up to the legends of Hades, who had lived an unimaginable life, but now he could make an attempt. At his current level, he was roughly on par with Typhon's incarnation. Yanwu easily stood over the ordinary divine beings of each society, and in fact, he believed that he could fight most of the highest divine beings, as well. He was confident that if he returned to Tartarus right now, he could easily deal with most of the titans and giants. It was the same situation for the kings of the demonic sea. He felt assured that he could defeat Nessie if they fought again, and he thought he could even fight the vampiric lord too. He now had the dignity of a divine being. If I can get through the 7th step, polymorph, from here, his eyes flashed. He was right on the verge of exuviating, and he felt like just a little more effort would make it happen. If he could become an elder dragon, which was a true draconic species, and even transcended, it would be a piece of cake to deal with the highest divine beings. Since he would be able to use his powers more freely, he might even stand a chance against Alpharon. The reason why Yanwu managed to grow so fast was the book in his hand, the original revelations. The original copy of the Emerald Tablet contained deep and vast knowledge. Although he was far from being the wisest person, studying alchemy and magic had given him a depth of knowledge about the tower. He also frequently had discussions with Brahm and Bu, as well as opened Hakma to study the knowledge of the dragons. However, the revelations contained so much knowledge that it made everything he knew seem like nothing. As the crawling chaos said, it was more than just a book of information, it was a record of the universe, from beginning to end, including events that had yet to occur, just like the Bible. Every word he read seemed to awaken something in his head. His soul began to remember the mysteries of the beginning of the universe that it had forgotten after reincarnation, creating the conditions for him to find more ideas. This was the peak the heavenly demon had spoken of when they first met. Whoosh! The emerald tablet is only a single page in this thick book with thousands of pages. The crawling chaos was right. He had said the emerald tablet was only a tiny piece of information that could be easily discarded. But that tiny piece had shaken up both the lower world and the heavenly world. Yin Wu was curious what the revelations were exactly. He couldn't imagine who might have written them, and in fact, he was even fearful that such a being could exist. Still, he didn't stop reading. Simply looking at it already led to so much growth. What would happen if he actually understood it? He grew more certain as he continued to read that the secret of darkness and the path to it were in the book. However, considering that it had taken him nearly a year just to understand one page of the revelations, he needed an unbelievable amount of time to examine the rest of the contents. He had managed to achieve the sixth step of the awakening by the fourth page, and he already felt as though he'd taken up too much time. He needed to hurry. He didn't even have time to check how much time he had left. Just when he was about to get back to the revelations, the feeling of danger made him look up. However, all he could see were books lying scattered on the ground. Shannon, who should have been talking up a storm, Hanryong, who should have been reading quietly, Rebecca, Boo, and even the vampiric lord were all gone. Although he felt it was strange that his familiars had disappeared, he focused on the books again. He could look for his familiars anytime, but he didn't know if he'd ever get another chance to read the revelations again. Only the sound of pages turning filled the silence. 8 pages. 9 pages. By the time he was on the 10th page, the Stone of Sin had become complete. Superbia swallowed Gula, and his dragon heart had grown 3 times its previous size. The potential of the 6th step of the dragon body awakening had fully bloomed, and the holiness of the throne of death had grown more stable. He was at the peak of the 7th step, and he could feel something cracking inside him. His ripe soul had grown and was starting to break the chains binding it. Exuviation. He had finally taken the first step towards transcendence. Like a chick hatching out of an egg, his soul was preparing to escape the limits of his body. Crack. The larger the crack was, the more painful it felt. He felt like his body was shattering into pieces. However, his soul felt exhilarated at escaping its uncomfortable cage. Yin Wu was feeling 2 extremes of emotions at the same time. However, even as he endured this, he didn't take his eyes off the revelations. He had just passed the final point and the last piece of the shell was left when he heard a strange voice. Open hollow corner bracket. I have been watching you for a while. You are definitely quite different from all the children of the past. It was a familiar voice. Alpharon, open hollow corner bracket from Lucille to Faust, Batory, Ismanios, Nayu, all their obsessions are blooming in you. With the initiation of that child Cha Jung-woo, I truly cannot understand. Exuviation, transcendence, they can only bring disaster. Why are you all so obsessed with this nonsense? The final shell that had seemed so easy to break didn't budge, as though it were being held in place and something was blocking him from hatching fully. Open hollow corner bracket. I know what it is you want. I feel sorry for that child, Cha Jung-woo, but it will only end the same way as it did last time. Yin Wu roared in the unbreakable egg, but the sound didn't reach Alpharon at all. Open hollow corner bracket. I will stop both of you this time as well. A figure of light took up his blurred line of sight. He didn't know how it happened, but Alpharon had entered his consciousness not only to stop his exuviation but also to return him to the level of a mortal. The Summer Queen and the other dragons, the vampiric lord who'd lived for thousands of years, Faust who had chased after darkness, and even the martial king who led the one-horned tribe into their golden age had all despaired, unable to get past this moment. Yin Wu was now facing the same crossroads. Would he permanently give up exuviation and finish his revenge as the strongest of the mortals, or climb over Alpharon to finish exuviation? He'd already made his decision. I will fight. Yin Wu freed all his strength to withstand the force that was trying to push him down, his level, powers, and even his divine authority. The throne of death has been released. Rumble. A mighty explosion of energy cracked his consciousness, shaking the library. Shelves broke apart, books spilling to the ground as pages fluttered in the air. Sixth step awakening. All have been powers released. Yin Wu spread his sky wings open with his completed demonic divine draconic body and clashed with Alpharon, who had finished manifesting. Open hollow corner bracket kikikik. I thought you were ripe enough, but you've done even more. Above their heads, a figure that looked like a clump of black shadows sat on some fallen shelves, observing them. The figure was faceless, but an opening that looked like a mouth full of sharp teeth smiled widely. It was the manifestation of the demonism. The demonism. Yin Wu's eyes widened. How did the being that was supposed to be sleeping inside the stone of sin manage to manifest itself outside? Didn't it only have the ability to show itself by borrowing his body? All the questions flashing through his head found an answer when he felt a sharpness to the demonism, as well as an auspicious and familiar, albeit strange, energy. He quickly moved his hand to his waist. There wasn't anything there and his expression stiffened. You took Vigrid. Open hollow corner bracket good guess, kiddo. You've definitely ripened even more than I imagined. A lot. Yin Wu hadn't been the only one who changed after reading the revelations. As his stone of sin became stronger, so did the demonism inside of it. It normally had to stay asleep because of the immense amount of energy it required to move, but now it could even appear outside. As Yin Wu grew, the demonism regained more of its strength. The vestige inside of the cast of the Black King had transformed with Agar's magic power and the Stone of Sin. Although it was technically only remnants of the Black King, it was also another aspect of Yin Wu, which was why it was always trying to take him over. Now that Yin Wu was close to exuviation, it finally revealed its sharp teeth to collect the ripe fruit it had been waiting for. However, it hadn't chosen to manifest in Yin Wu but Vigrid, the magic sword with countless vestiges of spirits and creatures. Since it was a holy sword whose curses had been cleansed with holy power and dragon blood, it was a worthy choice, but someone else was already occupying it. What happened to the vampiric lord? Open hollow corner bracket I heard she also chased after darkness, and she was better than you in the past. Kikik. But that's it. Fools like her are nothing more than a single bite. I'm actually hungrier than before. He stiffened. He'd done what to the vampiric lord? Open hollow corner bracket but don't worry. Right now, you're much. Before the demonism could finish, Yin Wu suddenly appeared directly in front of him with a murderous aura. He landed a punch on the demonism's face, sending the being flying back with the magic power that burst from his dragon heart. The demonism fell against a wall and shattered it with a crash. The room began to collapse around him, but the demonism continued to fly back like a kite with a cut string, knocking over the shelves of the Chenggong library as though they were dominoes. Innumerable books spilled onto the floor and paper floated in the air like snow until the demonism was buried under multiple layers of broken shelves. Yin Wu didn't stop there, and he used Blink to appear right over the demonism's head and jumped down, magic power concentrated on both his legs. Boom! As soon as Yin Wu was about to descend, a black light exploded among the broken shelves. Rumble. The demonism smiled as though it were having the time of its life. It had waited so long for this moment. Open hollow corner bracket yes. That's it. The more you struggle against me, the tastier you'll be. A red light exploded out of Yin Wu. The sword thunder of meteor sword art burst out in web-like formations, shredding the shelves around him. Each bolt had the same power as the one that had struck Nessie's neck. Yin Wu could now create hundreds of them instantly at the same time. However, the demonism exuded darkness, as though it would never lose to him. Thick, dark fog quivered in the air and bared its teeth. It was a technique similar to the vampiric spirit. However, just as the sword thunder and the darkness were about to collide, Alpharon interfered. Open hollow corner bracket it seems that I have to block two things here. Splendid, how very splendid. The sword thunder and darkness were torn apart by a white energy, and Yin Wu flapped his sky wings to get to a shelf far away. The demonism was a huge problem, but Alpharon was a greater pain in the neck. He had ruled over all for thousands of years, blocking the heavenly world and the lower world, which led to his name, All for One. Yin Wu already knew how strong he was since they'd fought before. Alpharon was the wall even the martial king hadn't been able to climb. He didn't think he could defeat him even if he worked with the demonism. At most, their chances of victory were at 40%. Still, he didn't plan on giving up. Just because something hadn't worked once, it didn't mean it would fail the second time. Also, this was the perfect time to fight because Alpharon didn't know how strong he'd become. If Yin Wu caught him off guard, he might have a chance. Besides, he wasn't trying to kill Alpharon. He only needed a window to attempt exuviation. He needed time to break out of his shell and escape the constraints of the system and stand entirely on his own. The demonism is here, and this is the Changgong Library. Anything can happen. In a fierce battle with all combatants hostile to each other, an opportunity could arise at any time. Yin Wu once again spread his sky wings open. Swoosh. At the same time, the demonism expanded the darkness and Alpharon spawned more white light. They were all thinking the same thing Yin Wu was. The pressure each of them exuded made the Changgong Library quake as though it were about to collapse. They crashed into each other again. They're strong. As soon as they collided, Yin Wu could feel the strength of his opponents. It was a single clash, but his hands had immediately grown numb, and his scales, which were stronger than most armor, had been crushed along with his muscles and bones. Regeneration helped him recover quickly, but it was hard to believe that this would happen even though the revelations had made him so much stronger. But, still, he didn't lose his nerve. Instead, he grew more self-assured. I'm strong too. He was stronger than he'd expected. In the past, the clash would have left his entire body bloody, but now, only his right hand was slightly crushed. It might be doable. He instantly chased after the demonism. Along with Alpharon, the demonism had been caught off guard as well. They thought the collision would leave him on the brink of death. Spark. Meteor sword art, sword thunder. Meteor sword art condensed in his hand, emitting a black-red light so bright it was almost blinding. He lashed it down on the back of the demonism's neck. Clang. He felt like he'd hit steel. Since the demonism was inside Vigrid, its body was the sword itself, which explained the metallic sound. Yin Wu was aware of this, and so he'd protected his hand with layers of aura first. A long injury on the demonism's torso. Too shallow. Yin Wu clucked his tongue. He thought he had found the demonism's weakness, but he had quickly moved back after realizing what Yin Wu was up to, and Yin Wu had only managed to reach him with his fingertips. Still, the demonism hadn't been able to avoid Yin Wu completely, and instead of blood, darkness spurted out of the wound. Although blackness immediately healed the injury, it didn't heal the demonism's hurt pride. Open hollow corner bracket, you dare. He had only allowed the first attack to observe Yin Wu's abilities, but Yin Wu had attacked while he was busy with Alpharon. If the injury had been any deeper, he would have died. It wasn't that death applied to spirit bodies like him, but it couldn't accept that a mortal had caught him off guard. Open hollow corner bracket, I was going to savor you at the end, but if you want to be eaten that badly, be my guest. I won't stop you. The demonism dashed towards Yin Wu with sharp teeth glinting in its wide-open maw. Yin Wu instinctively flapped his sky wings and activated Blink. Everything in the spot where he had just stood was ripped apart. Not only were the shelves and books torn asunder, even space itself was blown away. The teeth marks that the demonism left behind revealed pitch-black emptiness that reminded him of a shark eating its prey ravenously. If he had been caught in the attack, even his soul wouldn't be left behind. Nothing existed within the demonism's maw, only an abyss that sucked everything inside like a black hole. It was most likely the true demonism. Crash. The demonism kicked off the ground as if to say that he wasn't done. Boom, boom. He was too fast. Yin Wu evaded him, but he was right at Yin Wu's heels, chewing and swallowing all the areas Yin Wu had just been in. He gathered Sword Thunder to attempt a counterattack at the demonism's head, but the demonism only scoffed and ate it with relish. Open hollow corner bracket, kikikik. Do you think that'll work? The occasional bolt cut his arm or leg, but he quickly recovered with blackness. Then, Yin Wu's eyes widened further at the being laughing so confidently. If the demonism liked to eat that much, Yin Wu would feed him to his heart's content. Time difference. Draconic divine eyes. Golden eyes narrowed and searched for the being's weaknesses. The demonism was almost flawless, and it was hard to find imperfections in his spirit body. However, his vessel, Vigrid, wasn't perfect. He could see the injury on the back of his neck. Breath. With all his strength, he released the draconic species' greatest power along with the dragon heart that symbolized them, breath condensed with sword thunder. Rumble. Although it was only a shallow breath, a massive tsunami soared high up, as if it would blow away everything in his vicinity. Open hollow corner bracket, U. The demonism spread his darkness to stop the breath. Black waves rolled around him like splashes of ink, but it wasn't enough to stop the overwhelming breath. Whoosh. Not only did the breath eat up the black waves, it swept away the demonism as well. The demonism shouted something, but he was buried under the explosive breath, which pushed forward and erased everything it reached. The library's books burned without leaving a trace behind. Rumble. The collection of all knowledge in the world shook turbulently. Yin Wu felt his body heating up, as though he had jumped into a pit of fire. Steam rose from his hot scales. He was completely exhausted after using all of his strength and magic power, but he felt proud. I didn't know I could push away space itself. His eyes widened at the sight he'd created. Although the demonism had torn out space by eating it, the breath had completely annihilated everything it passed, not even leaving the physical laws of concepts behind. It was the power to turn anything into nothing, which was the same as summoning emptiness. The flawless strike of breath condensed with sword thunder was vastly destructive. Yi and Wu was sure that even the Summer Queen's breath wouldn't equal it. He'd seen it during the time Red Dragon and the Sword God clashed. Back then, he wondered how he would ever deal with it, but now it didn't seem too difficult at all. Demonic divine draconic body, is it because I have 3 transcendent factors? If he was this powerful even before polymorphing into a draconic species, what would happen once he managed it? And if he could attain the last factor of the giants, what exceptional achievements would he be able to accomplish? Yi and Wu wanted to reach that level of growth as soon as possible. And for that, he needed to get rid of the obstacles in his way. I need to exuviate first. Whoosh. The breath didn't only push the demonism back, it also swamped Alphorone. As the breath spread, a white column of light suddenly shot up to the ceiling at its center. Open angle bracket, invincible close angle bracket. The breath twisted and spun around the light, and a gigantic tornado appeared in the Chenggong library, Alphorone standing beneath it. The injuries on his body of light were proof that he hadn't been able to evade the attack. The intensity of his light had grown, which meant that he was using a significant amount of magic power. Open hollow corner bracket, it feels like I am looking at the breaths of Calidus and the other ancient dragons. As expected of the Black King's successor. If you exuviate and transcend, you might even reach my level or beyond. Alphorone exclaimed, surprised by Yi and Wu's achievements. He knew Yi and Wu had grown rapidly with the legacy Cha Jung-Wu left behind, but that didn't negate his own hard work. Alphorone felt a grudging respect. He'd once been a player who climbed up the tower, as well, and he recognized that Yi and Wu was creating a path that no one had ever walked before. Open hollow corner bracket, but this is all the more reason why I cannot allow you above. I will not ask you to forgive my decision. I will take this sin with me until the end. Alphorone became more certain that he needed to block Yi and Wu before it was too late, just as he'd done to the draconic species of the past. Alphorone spread his arms wide and struck the ground with one hand. The tornado soaring up to the sky condensed into the shape of his hand. It was the secret skill that he had never revealed after the dragon massacre except when he fought the martial king, the 4th skill of his trait, 7 stars. Open angle bracket, great handprint, close angle bracket. Boom. A light in the shape of a giant hand shot out Auroras over Yi and Wu's head. Open hollow corner bracket, yes. You should be able to attack me like this if you've ripened that much. Did you think you'd be fine after putting me in this state? Blackness spread below Yi and Wu's feet as emptiness opened. It looked like a beast's mouth with all its sharp teeth. Open angle bracket, predation, emptiness, close angle bracket. The demonism had regrown in the ground after its spirit body was injured and was now spreading its mouth wide open. Bright white light fell like lightning, and pitch black darkness filled up like a marsh. It would have been a precarious situation even for most of the divine beings, but Yi and Wu kept his cool and raised more sword thunder. His body sparked as red-black lightning bloomed. Then, he began to control his consciousness, planning to create a large column that would connect the earth and the skies and prevent the two beings from approaching him. Just as sword thunder was about to shoot up into the sky, a powerful voice boomed, deafening him. You damned bastards, where do you think you are? The magic power contained in the voice was so great that Yi and Wu automatically froze along with the others, as if time had stopped. None of them could move at all as the heavenly demon appeared with a ray of light. He landed on the ground with such a great impact that Yi and Wu's control of his consciousness, Alphorone's great handprint, and the demonism's predation emptiness were blown away. The fierce atmosphere that had risen the Chenggong library disappeared as if it had never been present. Yi and Wu and the other two were frozen in shock. The heavenly demon frowned as he looked at the messy library. I was only gone for a moment. Do you all wanna die? Huh. Yi and Wu felt his body vibrating with the heavenly demon's voice. He wanted to move, but he just couldn't. He was filled with shock once more at the power of the heavenly demon, who could control the natural laws with just his voice. Both the demonism and Alphorone felt the same. The heavenly demon had frozen the tower's strongest being, Alphorone, and the Black King's remnants, the demonism, in a manner that couldn't be put into words. Open hollow corner bracket until the end, you. Alphorone glared at the heavenly demon. It was impossible to see his face because he was covered in light, but Yianwu felt that he was furious. His usual transcendent air, which made him seem like an immortal being, a Xian, was gone. However, he didn't behave towards the heavenly demon as though they were enemies. It's more like when Jungwoo and I would complain about each other to our mother. Yianwu didn't know if that was an appropriate way to describe how Alphorone spoke to the heavenly demon, but it was genuinely how Yianwu saw it. For a moment, a bittersweet look flashed in the heavenly demon's eyes as he looked at Alphorone. Then, he returned to his original attitude and began to scold him. You have a lot of stuff to do because of the guys in the heavenly world, right? Go back. That was it. Alphorone, who could use Shukuchi to go anywhere in the tower, disappeared without a trace. The pressure that had been blocking Yianwu's exuviation also disappeared. Open hollow corner bracket kikikik. Guess today isn't the day. It was still fun, very fun. From far away, the demonism, who had returned to his original appearance, looked from Yianwu to the heavenly demon and returned inside Vigrid with a laugh, leaving behind a pitch-black sword, which fell to the ground. The demonic energy that blackened Vigrid disappeared, and it turned white again. Yianwu extended his hand with magic power to retrieve Vigrid and quickly scanned it, checking to see if the demonism really had eaten the vampiric lord. He found her spirit body hiding in a corner inside Vigrid. Most of it had been eaten up, and she'd lost most of her strength. It seemed like she couldn't wake up because she was too weak. At this rate, her level would be completely lost, and her spirit body would scatter. No. He didn't want to lose the vampiric lord so pointlessly. She was a necessary component of the team he was planning to create to hunt Alphorone, so he needed to save her. Besides, he couldn't make Lana sad again. However, he didn't know how to heal a damaged spirit body. All he could do was take her in as his familiar and give her the powers of the Black King. He hesitated, trying to think of another method. He didn't want her to have to take time to regain her strength like Brahm, who still didn't have his divinity. The heavenly demon suddenly stepped up and put his hand on Vigrid. Whoosh! His hand flashed with golden light and he could feel the vampiric lord's spirit body return to its original state. She was still in a deep sleep, but she seemed more comfortable. Yianwu looked at the heavenly demon in surprise. Was it this easy to fix a damaged divinity? He knew it couldn't be true if Typhon and the giants had struggled in Tartarus for so long. But the heavenly demon could create miracles as though they were nothing. From the first moment they met, the heavenly demon kept surprising Yianwu. Perhaps nothing was impossible for a light that existed on its own like him. At the same time, another thought occurred to Yianwu. If the heavenly demon was a light that existed from the beginning, how could he also be human with the name Sun Ji Ho? The progenitor gods were beings who didn't have egos and could only express their will, but the heavenly demon didn't seem affected. He wasn't an incarnation either. He looked like he was in his true body. Yianwu had only read 10 pages of the Revelations, and from that and according to the laws of the universe, it was impossible for the heavenly demon to exist. His existence was a paradox. Kiddo, there's nothing I can do for you even if you're looking at me like you've got a crush on me. Yianwu wondered if the heavenly demon could exist because of his endless narcissism. What a messy fight, and I was only gone for a short while. Sheesh. He looked around the chaotic interior and sighed, clapping his hands. Like a video that was being rewound, the shelves and books returned to their original state. The heavenly demon turned back to Yianwu, looking him up and down with amusement. Still, for someone who's been stuck inside reading books, it looks like you've gone through quite some improvement. Yes, sir, it was all thanks to you. After finishing the 6th step of his awakening, Yianwu realized that he'd been in the Chenggong library much longer than the allocated time. The person in front of him had made it possible. Then, suddenly, the heavenly demon faded out and he reappeared in front of Yianwu. Yianwu hadn't been able to read his movements even after his growth. For some reason, he felt like something about the heavenly demon's smile reminded him of the martial king. Let's rough you up a bit. You should be punished for making a mess of the library, don't you think? Thwack. Yianwu realized that an even greater bully than the martial king was inside the library. Crack. You're more useful now. And you can sort of counterattack, too. The heavenly demon grinned as he cracked his knuckles. He's worse than the martial king. Yianwu thought to himself as he rubbed his eyes with an egg that the heavenly demon had managed to produce from somewhere. Both his eyes were blacker than a panda's. The bureau had once said there was no better insult than, worse than the martial king, and that applied to this situation, too. Of course, he didn't say it out loud. If he did, he he would not only see stars, but the entire universe. You just insulted me, didn't you? The heavenly demon suddenly whipped around and looked at Yi and Wu with a frown, scratching his ear with his pinky. He's stupidly sharp. Yi and Wu felt guilty, but he tried not to show it as he replied. Of course not. Ha, you rat, you're slyer than you look. Fine, I'll let you off this time. Yi and Wu didn't reply and carefully changed the subject. Do you know how much time has passed? He knew he'd spent a long while in the Chang'an library, but he didn't have any idea how much time had passed, although he suspected it would be longer than he expected. His connection to his familiars had been growing a lot weaker for a while now, and he guessed he'd been inside for a couple of years. I can see you're trying to change the subject, idiot. Yi and Wu didn't speak. Watch, you'll get caught someday. The heavenly demon glared at Yi and Wu, who looked away. Then, the heavenly demon suddenly laughed as he counted his fingers. It's been a while, longer than I expected. How long? I don't know. Around, he grinned mischievously. 100 years. 100 years. Yi and Wu's eyes widened, wondering if he'd heard right. The heavenly demon grinned even more widely, as though he were enjoying this. What, you think I'm joking? If not, don't get so scared, kiddo. Of course, I'm joking. How could 100 years have passed by? Yi and Wu sighed in relief. He prided himself on his cold rationality in every situation, but somehow, the heavenly demon always made him feel uncertain of things. It's been longer than that, to be exact, 193 years. Phew, your focus is amazing. I don't even think I could do that, dang. Yi and Wu stiffened at the heavenly demon's words. It had to be another joke. Why are you so surprised? Isn't it obvious? You've been looking at the revelations for such a long time. Didn't you think time would go by? You're funny. Of course, Yi and Wu did feel that a lot of time had passed, but he never thought it would be something like that. Thoughts filled his head. Even though 200 years passed quickly for transcendents like the heavenly demon, it wasn't the same for mortals. It was longer than an average human's life, and it could determine the success or failure of a group. Only one name filled his head, Arthea. What had happened to his comrades? Fant, Adora, Khan, Doyle. They were strong, but they likely had waited for him to return, not knowing whether he was dead or alive. They probably had to handle many battles pressuring Arthea. White Dragon might have moved against them, the Devil Army might have reappeared, or the hidden Dod Brethren might have shown themselves. All of his plans had been foiled, and he felt sweat drip down his back. If we factor in the time you gained with your skill, it's easily been over 1,000 years. Yi and Wu pressed his lips together. The heavenly demon was most likely speaking about time difference. 1,000 years. It was such a long time that he couldn't imagine it. It was already hard to conceive of 200 years, but 1,000 was just incomprehensible. However, as the heavenly demon said, it made sense that that much time had passed when he considered the growth he'd undergone. Although he'd stopped right before exuviating because of Alpharon, he still managed to completely assimilate the power of the Throne of Death. With his abilities now, he had nothing to be scared of, and he had grown even more confident after fighting Alpharon and the demonism. He even believed he could hold his ground against the Martial King, as well. So this is why my connection with Shannon and Hanryong grew weaker. His familiars lived in the same time frame as he did. If they had waited for 1,000 years, it was normal for them to fall into a deep sleep. Thankfully, when he looked inside, he found them all hibernating after achieving a level that didn't fall behind his. When he realized this, he felt at ease. At first, he had been at a loss about what to do after learning that 100 years had passed, but after confirming that he and his familiars had all grown, he thought they'd be able to make a comeback. He'd have to go find his comrades, apologize, and start from the beginning. However, he didn't think it would take that long for him to come up with a new plan. I'll focus on dealing with the forces in the tower and searching for the crawling chaos for now. Yi and Wu was sure that the crawling chaos was still hovering around the tower trying to find a way in, and he planned on not only looking for him but also the rest of the otherworld gods. After reading the beginning of the revelations, he had grown sure that the path to darkness was related to the otherworld gods. It seemed the end the crawling chaos had spoken of was related to the time his father opened his eyes, as well as the Black King's darkness. Yi and Wu guessed that darkness was another term for the end. Of course, contacting the otherworld gods immediately was like suicide, since he hadn't achieved exuviation or transcended yet. He needed to avoid them for now. Fortunately, he had a shortcut in mind. Valdebek. I need to find him. Valdebek was bound to know the great secret about the darkness and the otherworld gods. It couldn't be a coincidence that the crawling chaos had sent Jungwoo back to Earth. And Boo also needs to find all his lost memories. His level needs to be restored. When all the puzzle pieces were put in order, Woo could finally complete his unit of elite soldiers. He'd find Boo's memories of Faust, raise the vampiric lord, and convince the Summer Queen to hunt Alpharone. Only then could he finish the basic requirements, exuviation and transcendence, to reach darkness. After that, he'd be able to reach the top. He had a lot of things to do, but at least the Changgong Library had cleared up a lot of his questions and helped him organize his priorities. All he had to do was move forward. He could crush anything that got in his way. The heavenly demon grinned as though he were reading Woo's thoughts. I thought you'd be flustered for a while, but you regained your cool pretty fast. Seems like you've awakened your ataraxia. I thought you'd only grown stronger, but you've also grown mentally. Guess it was worth it to be nice to you. The heavenly demon smirked, as though he decided it had been a wise choice to interfere with the system and allow Woo to stay longer inside the Changgong Library. Good, I have another present for you. Gifts galore. Woo flinched, wondering what the heavenly demon was going to do this time. He felt paranoid each time the heavenly demon announced that he was going to do something. The heavenly demon suddenly clapped his hands, and the Changgong Library began to shake as though cogs in a machine were turning. The heavenly demon grinned, as if telling Woo to watch and wait. Woo felt as though his soul were suddenly being turned around, as though he'd been in a speeding car that suddenly crashed and was rolling on the ground. He could sense it because he had peeked at the truth of the universe through the revelations and was close to becoming a divine being. Everything in the world was splitting apart. His soul, space and time, the laws of physics, and even the absolute truths of the beyond, ideas. Then everything was reassembled and changed. The past, which even the progenitor gods, superior gods, and otherworld gods couldn't affect, was being forced around. Woo could feel his entire soul shaking at the center of the change, and he never wanted to experience this pain again. The heavenly demon grinned nonchalantly. Boom, only after a while did the quake stop. Woo pitched over, panting. Sweat dripped down his forehead as chills ran down his spine. A sense of danger he hadn't even felt during the battle with Alpharone, and the demonism dominated his entire body. What? Woo forced himself to ask once he'd calmed down. The heavenly demon's smile was still mischievous. I turned back time. Isn't that better for you? Turning the wheel isn't easy for me either. The wheel was the timeline or the world line. The heavenly demon had rewound the axis of time. Woo was speechless. Controlling the flow of time was impossible, and even divine beings couldn't escape time. As long as they lived, they could never transcend time. At most, slowing it down was the best they could do. Rewinding it was on another level. Woo had the skill precognition, but that was only a simulation of the future based on Dragon's knowledge and the different possibilities that could happen. It was far from an ability to interfere in the future. Alpharone was the one who was closest to interfering with time, since one of his signature skills was clairvoyance, but even that wasn't perfect. If it were, he'd be all-knowing and omniscient, but he hadn't been able to prevent Woo from exuviating in the Changgong Library. However, even though he'd done the impossible, the heavenly demon spoke of it as though it meant nothing. I've turned back time to around 10 days after you entered this library, so you don't have to worry about the tower. Just how mighty was the heavenly demon? Woo thought he might be the only being who could transcend time and see the absolute truth. Another thought occurred to him. If it's possible to turn back time, just maybe. No, but before Woo could say anything, the heavenly demon interrupted his thoughts with a grave face. Woo felt a burst of anger. Just 10 years. Why couldn't he turn time back 10 years, or even 5, in addition to the 200 years? Why not? Because you're an irregularity. What? You became an irregularity as soon as you stepped inside the tower. So, no. Woo was dumbfounded. And I've already done so much, so there's no need for me to do any more, is there? Woo clenched his fists. Becoming an irregularity meant he could interfere in the history of the universe. Because of this, the heavenly demon probably couldn't do any more. It was certain that he had already dealt with its cost. What was more, he was right. He had already been generous enough. He had no reason or responsibility to help Woo further. Even so, if only he could turn back time a few more years, if only. Just as he was thinking that, a message popped up in his vision. Your viewing time has ended. Peeking at the revelations of time and space should have been a great help, so good luck with what you plan on doing. Whoosh. A red portal opened below Yi and Wu's feet. It meant it was time for him to leave the library. As he looked at it, he choked down the last of his lingering attachments. The heavenly demon was right. Just getting to this place had helped him immensely, and he needed to create the path for his future himself. The heavenly demon had shown him goodwill without any particular reason. It was the second time Yi and Wu had experienced this after Heneva. Thank you for everything. Yi and Wu bowed. The heavenly demon's face relaxed, and he grinned. Nah, it was nice talking to a young one from home. If you have time, come visit again. The heavenly demon waved his hand like the situation was too awkward. Then goodbye. Light blinded Yi and Wu's eyes, and he felt as though he were falling through a black hole. Oh, right, if you see my son again, tell him I'm sorry. The heavenly demon's voice faded away. Would you like to move to the 52nd floor? Son. A burst of light momentarily brightened the area before it dispersed into a multitude of tiny sparks that faded away with the Chenggong library. Yi and Wu was momentarily dazed, deeply affected by the heavenly demon's parting words. At that moment, wait, Yi and Wu's mind raced as a thought formed in his mind. Phew, he could sense that he was in freefall. This is the 52nd floor, the gate of the frozen sea. The trial of the 52nd floor is beginning. Trial. Since ancient times, icy habitats have been one of the most difficult places for warm-blooded creatures to survive. Icy habitats pose a challenge to warm-blooded creatures, and ice represents death in many ways. However, after death, new life springs up, and an ice-covered world is bound to eventually reveal a warm, bountiful one. Just as light and blackness circulate, ice also holds countless possibilities. Find those possibilities and overcome the limitations of ice. Those possibilities will reveal and develop your potential. In many ways, the 52nd floor was the extreme opposite of the 51st floor. On the 51st floor, one had to climb a mountain with several layers of fire, while on the 52nd floor, one had to cross an endless sea of ice. A blizzard blew year-round on the floor, dropping the temperature so much that most living beings couldn't survive. In addition, the sun's rays were so intense that the light reflecting off the white snow could damage one's eyesight. In a way, it was a very similar environment to the Wailing Wall that Yi and Wu experienced on the 26th floor. Both floors boasted a large area where one could freely move around. However, the biggest difference between them was that one could rely on the wall for protection and focus on defeating the invaders on the 26th floor. However, on the 52nd floor, one had to move around without any protection because there were hardly any safe places around. There was no land, only the cold, icy sea, where large icebergs occasionally appeared. They provided areas where players could stand, but that was the most that they could do. Additionally, it was impossible to know what kind of monsters were hiding on and beneath the icebergs. They were filled with so many dangerous crevices that it was impossible to relax one's guard even for a moment. Danger lurked in every corner. The 51st floor tested the abilities and unique properties of the rankers who had passed the 50th floor and guided them towards the path they would take in the future. The 52nd floor tested the abilities of those who'd already made a decision about their future path. Being a ranker in the tower didn't only mean one had great talent. It also meant that one had been reborn as a true practitioner of one's path. In other words, one's path was inevitably filled with great trials and dangerous tribulations, and so one had to have the ability to pass an ordeal like the 52nd floor. And to end this grueling trial, I need to find the water dragon's pearl in the depths of this icy sea. The water dragon's pearls were usually found in the hydrothermal vents located in the deepest part of the sea, where light did not reach. They were very difficult to access because of the immense pressure, which disturbed one's senses. Of course, the temperature was also much lower, and the sea was infested with unknown sea creatures and sea monsters. Because of this, many rankers trembled in fright when it came to the 52nd floor. It was also where those who fought Arthea had built their stronghold, since the harsh environment made it easy to hide, and one could take advantage of the topography with artifacts. Since the 52nd floor was the place where those who resisted Arthea's rule of the lower floors could find respite, they would fight tooth and nail to keep it free from anyone's rule. Arthea had slowly driven them there in order to wage a battle and eliminate them all in one fell swoop. However, Yi and Wu wasn't directly involved in this, and the responsibility had been given to Doyle since none of the resistors were strong enough to need Yi and Wu's intervention. And even if someone strong appeared, either Fant or Khan was more than capable of taking care of them. Now that Doyle was Yi and Wu's apostle, Arthea's command system revolved around him in Yi and Wu's absence. Fortunately, Doyle was a capable administrator who led the organization without mistakes. He updated Yi and Wu frequently through their shared channel, which meant that Yi and Wu was not too concerned about the day-to-day operations and Arthea's overall progress. Why isn't anyone here? As soon as Yi and Wu arrived on the 52nd floor, he had expanded his consciousness. He hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary, but he couldn't even sense the presence of any players trying to clear the floor and avoiding the clash between Arthea and other clans. Nor could he sense anyone from Arthea or any of the resistors. If 200 years had passed, Yi and Wu would have thought this was normal, but he watched the heavenly demon turn the wheel of time and space with his own eyes, so there was no way that the floor would be so empty. Then did I make an error in calculating the time difference? For a moment, Yi and Wu thought this might be the case. Rewinding the wheel of time and space was not an easy task. Even though he tried to return around the time he entered the Chenggong library, he might have missed by a few days, months, or even years since it was too difficult to match the exact point in time. From the moment he entered the Chenggong library, he had resigned himself to the fact that he might lose anything from a few months to a year. As the battle over, in order to accurately determine the time, Yi and Wu decided to open all the channels that the heavenly demon had closed. However, before he had a chance to do so, the ice under his feet suddenly churned, and a huge whirlwind appeared nearby from the ice, flowing into the sky like a white pillar. Just by looking at it, Yi and Wu could tell that the whirlwind possessed immense power. It tore about everything around it, and he could hear an earth-shattering noise. Yi and Wu quickly spread his fire wings and activated Blink. Even though Blink transported him to a distant place, crackle, crackle. Bam! As if anticipating Yi and Wu's movements, another whirlwind broke through the icy water and rose up into the sky, trying to swallow Yi and Wu whole. Whenever Yi and Wu used Blink, a new whirlwind would appear beneath him. It was clearly not a natural phenomenon, someone was targeting him deliberately. Yi and Wu realized who it was when he sensed a magical aura in the wind. Demonism. SS's. Blackness spread thickly over the sparkling white sea, stretching out on both sides as a pair of eyes appeared in its center. The gaze was full of arrogance that pressed down on everything in the world. Yi and Wu could also feel his hunger, as if he wanted to consume Yi and Wu whole. Open hollow corner bracket my little one, you escaped my grasp so adeptly. I really like you, you were worth waiting for. When they were still in the Chenggong library, the demonism had been forced to form a human body because of the limitations from the heavenly demon. However, now that he was on the 52nd floor, he revealed his true body. Yi and Wu could read all the things hidden behind his eyes. Vigrid contained the wishes of the heroes who cried out for victory and the evil spirits of the demons that spat out blood and cursed. The demonism had been formed when various thoughts and emotions gathered together, and it wasn't enough for him to consume the desire for victory and evil thoughts that Vigrid possessed. The demonism revealed his true power because he wanted to also consume Vigrid's potential and the power of its true names and folklore, behaving with arrogance and greed because of the nature of the Stone of Sin. It had already become a monster that could easily consume a demon king or great demon. Open hollow corner bracket since we've already warmed up at the library, shouldn't we play properly now? He. Boom, boom, boom. As the demonism released his will, the whirlwinds that had formed on the icy sea began to multiply in size. The sudden turbulence in the air caused huge waves hundreds of meters high to crash down around them. Black clouds gathered in the sky and lightning rained down one after another. The demonism made the extreme weather appear at will, and blackness similar to the Black King's rapidly spread, occasionally exposing its jagged teeth, as if it would consume Yi and Wu at any moment. Even though Yi and Wu had just succeeded to the throne of death, the demonism possessed the strength to go toe-to-toe with Alpharon because of all the various pieces he had collected. Since he had the assistance of the Stone of Sin and was using Vigrid as a vessel, there was no limit to his powers, which was why he had already taken the stage and shaken it. This crazy fool. Yi and Wu wondered what Alpharon was thinking at this moment and frowned at the thought of having to soon contend with two madmen. Ah, don't worry, that strange bastard won't show up here, he. It's probably because he's so preoccupied with other things. I don't think he has the time to worry about what's going on here. For a moment, Yi and Wu felt as if he had been blindsided as he remembered a phrase he'd scanned after picking up a random book in the Chenggong library, infighting in the bureau. Didn't it say that Yvelk had joined hands with Laplace and started a civil war in the Central Bureau? The Central Bureau was an important organization that kept the heavens and Alpharon in check. What would happen if it stopped functioning for a while? The answer was obvious: the heavenly world would descend to the lower floors. If Alphron was dealing with them, he didn't have the bandwidth to worry about anything else happening on the lower floors. It didn't matter how great he was. He wouldn't be able to handle all the chaos unless he could split himself in two. Yi and Wu understood why Alphron had appeared at the Chenggong library to prevent his awakening. However, once Alphron realized that he could not restrain Yi and Wu, Alphron had quickly left the library as if he had been kicked out. Since he was too busy stopping the heavenly world from descending, it had been difficult for him to completely stop Yi and Wu's awakening. The demonism had also seen the information and foreseen what the heavenly world would do and how Alphron would counterattack. And so, he had chosen this moment to eat the fruit he had been watching grow for such a long time. He was confident he could now consume Yi and Wu without any interruption. Open hollow corner bracket. Let's play together to our heart's content. Ha ha ha, close hollow corner bracket. Boom, the shockwaves that shook the stage grew more intense. Each impact made cracks form all over the stage, and the void began to bloom out of them. Chains shot out of the void and rushed towards Yi and Wu to ensnare him, glowing with blackness. Yi and Wu was aware that if they bound him, he'd never be able to escape. Sixth step. Dragon body awakening. All powers have been released. The throne of death has been released. Yi and Wu awakened his demonic draconic divine body and activated his powers to their maximum. Without Alphron's obstruction, Yi and Wu had no reason to restrict his abilities. A strong wave of aura flowed out of him like a storm, scattering the chains and clearing away the blackness that sought to capture him. Sky wings. Yi and Wu swapped his fire wings for his sky wings and awakened his keywords. Just as the demonism had revealed his body in the Chenggong library, Yi and Wu also wanted to awaken all the functions of his sky wings. The sky wings consisted of keywords that represented the powers of the gods and demons who had offered him their skills and apostleship. His channels with the gods and demons had been forcibly closed in the Chenggong library, so he hadn't been able to fully utilize the sky wings. However, now that he was free from any restrictions, Yi and Wu could access more power than previously. Thus, Yi and Wu was confident that he could finally get rid of the demonism once and for all and remove a thorn from his side. Thousands of channels opened up simultaneously. The restricted keywords are now accessible, waiting to connect with the relevant gods and demons. Keyword: Death is activating. All gods related to death have responded to your request. All demons related to death have responded to your request. Your left wing has been fully activated. Keyword: Fight is activating. All gods related to fight are withholding their response. All demons related to fight are withholding their response. Your right wing has not been fully activated. Your right wing's functions have been partially restored. Caution: only one of the sky wings has been fully activated. What? A message that Yi and Wu hadn't expected appeared. His eyes widened, and he looked up at the sky. He could feel that many gods and demons were watching him with wariness, and even outright hostility. Why were the gods and demons acting like this? He could not understand their gazes. In the past, some of the gods and demons had expressed concern about Yi and Wu's rapid development and ascension to the throne of death. Yi and Wu had also cultivated a hostile relationship with the titans and giants. However, these only concerned a few of the gods and demons, and most of them looked favorably on him. Some asked him to be their apostle, and others had even offered to help him transcend so that he could join their society. They all valued Yi and Wu's potential. But now, the situation seemed to have changed. My keywords were turned off for only a brief moment. What the hell happened during that time? The gods and demons want to speak with you. The godly society less than Asgard greater than asks you a question. Message: What about our proposal? Give us your decision. This is a prerequisite that must be met before we bestow any of our powers unto you. The godly society less than Dilman greater than asks you a question. Message: What happened to your access pass to the Chenggong library? What knowledge did you gain there? What is your relationship to the heavenly demon? The godly society less than Vedas greater than asks you a question. Message: We know that the heavenly demon turned the wheel of time and space. What will happen in the future? Give us the right to peruse the treasury of infinite knowledge at the Chenggong library. Doing so will guarantee you the highest position in our society. We promise to restore Brahma's fallen seat, as well. The demonic society less than La Infernal greater than states a message. Message: We are allies. We are even warring with Olympus for you. We request an alliance. Pass the access authority to Chenggong library over to us. If you do, we will give you a title that is on equal footing with the Grand Duke of the East. However, if you do not give us what we request, we will consider this a breach of our alliance. They were asking for access to the Chenggong library. All the gods and demons were stumbling over themselves to claim the rewards that Yianwu had obtained. They offered him anything he'd like and were willing to even take on the restrictions of the law of causality if necessary. It seemed that all transcendent beings longed to access the Chenggong library. Still, Yianwu withheld his reply, making the gods and demons grow increasingly anxious. It was impossible for Yianwu to agree to their requests since he'd already used up all of his viewing rights on the revelations. Also, he was currently in a dangerous battle with the demonism. However, the gods and demons knew that he was in a precarious situation and took advantage of this, insisting that he reply. Yianwu could feel his insides burning. It was a critical time for them since they were trying to descend, and access to the Chenggong library was more urgent than ever. All gods connected to you through their channels are speaking together. Message: if you don't have access. All demons connected to you through their channels speak in unison. Message: we will regard your actions as an affront and declare you our common enemy. All gods connected to open channels speak together. Message: give us your answer. All demons connected to open channels speak in unison. Message: what is your answer? Yianwu clenched his jaw as he looked at the messages filling his retina. The situation bordered on the absurd, but mostly, he felt annoyed. The right to access the Chenggong library was a reward he had been given because of his achievements. It was not something the gods or demons had the right to covet. The reward was given by the tower's system to help players pursue their goals, and although the gods and demons could try to make deals, they could not force Yianwu to share anything. How he used his access and reading rights were entirely up to him. Furthermore, the gods and demons knew this fact better than anyone else. However, they were still after his access, and now that they knew that Yianwu had met the heavenly demon and spun the wheel of time and space backwards, they began to take more coercive approaches. These gods and demons, they're all the same. He was aware that gods and demons never put players on an equal footing. They saw players as resources that could be used and thrown away whenever necessary. They trampled on players with no remorse, as though they were stepping on insects. They saw players as foolish creatures who needed their guidance in order to become useful. Yianwu knew better than anyone that this was how they saw him. Still, when the gods and demons showed their true faces so blatantly, Yianwu could not help grinding his teeth. So, they've decided to act like this when I'm in this situation, right? The godly society less than Asgard greater than urges you to answer. The godly society less than Diva greater than urges you to answer. The demonic society less than L'Infernal greater than asserts its rights to receive an answer from an ally. Even L'Infernal saw him as a useful tool in the end. However, it didn't matter how much they insisted. Yianwu had only been given 3 viewing rights, and it was impossible to distribute them evenly to all the societies. Besides, each society in the heavenly world had a complex network of connections to other societies, and even choosing one arbitrarily would still end up antagonizing others. Furthermore, since he had 3 viewing rights, he would have to give 1 extra to either a godly or demonic society. He'd be forced to do away with the ambiguous neutrality he'd been adhering to so far. Since Alpharon was tied up and the heavenly world was going through a turbulent period, as the most prominent being on the lower floors, Yianwu's choice would have great repercussions when it came to the future hierarchy of the tower. He didn't like that he was being forced to pick sides. However, instead of being angry, Yianwu suddenly burst into laughter. One side of his lips twisted upward. No, there's no reason to be annoyed. After all, didn't he also use the gods and demons to get what he wanted? He'd led them on, borrowing thousands of their powers by dangling becoming their apostle in front of them. He'd snatched up those powers and combined them into his sky wings, making great advancements and gained numerous achievements as the gods and demons looked on with bated breath and without receiving any compensation. They hadn't revealed their true feelings because they were worried that Yianwu would attach himself to a rival transcendent being, but it seemed that they'd all come to an agreement among themselves. If so, Yianwu could only do one thing. I guess this is the end of the road. He hadn't been naive enough to believe that they would go all the way with him, anyway. Since they'd now made their demands clear, it was time to part. It had come sooner than he'd expected since he'd hoped to use them to defeat Alpharon, but it wasn't a bad time either. He had become strong enough to obtain the throne of death. He was at the precipice of transcending, so he felt that he could stand toe-to-toe against a god or demon. There was no need for him to keep holding their hands. I have to go my own way. Yianwu stared up at the sky with a smile. Do you want to hear my answer? The godly society less than Malik greater than eagerly awaits your answer. The godly society less than Chan sect greater than eagerly awaits your answer. The godly society less than Dilman greater than eagerly awaits your answer. The demonic society less than L'infernal greater than reveals their eager interest in your response. A message has arrived from Agaras. Message. Hey, wait a sec, listen to what I have to say. This place is overrun with fools who want to eat you up and spit you out. As you know, Olympus stands firmly at the center of this. A message has arrived from Agaras. Message. So, align with me. The message has been blocked with your authorization. Someone whose message has been blocked is strongly protesting. The sender of the blocked message is being punished by his society. Baal examines you. As thousands of eyes stared down at him, Yin Wu coldly smiled up at the sky and proudly raised his middle finger, much like what the martial king had done in the past. Eat this. The godly society less than Diva greater than expresses its fiery wrath at you. They declare you a common enemy. The godly society less than Asgard greater than is angered by your arrogant decision. They declare you a common enemy. The godly society less than Dilman greater than frowns at your choice. They vote unanimously to declare you a common enemy. The demonic society less than L'Infernal greater than is silent. They show displeasure towards you. They are reviewing whether they should terminate their alliance with you. The demonic society less than Niflheim greater than has entered into a discussion regarding you. After discussion, they delegate all authority regarding you to their head, Loki. Cernunnos acknowledges your decision and nods quietly as if pleased. Vimalasitra is pleased with your decision. He smacks his knee in agreement and shouts for you to move forward. Someone whose message is temporarily blocked is kicking and screaming. Someone whose message is blocked gathers his apostles and disciples. Someone whose message is blocked calls Baal and urgently asks if he can visit. The reactions of individual gods and demons on top of the reactions of each society scrolled endlessly up in Yin Wu's eyes, making him dizzy. Thor expresses concern. He wants to retrieve the power that he bestowed upon you, the hammer of the thunder god. Prince Nezha reveals his anger. He wants to retrieve the power that he gave you, the king of 10,000 soldiers. Even beings Thor and Erlang Shen who had shown favor to Yin Wu expressed their regret or concern. After watching him for such a long time, they finally revealed their true faces and turned their backs on him. The powers connected to Yin Wu's sky wings began turning off one by one. He also felt the channels terminating. However, Yin Wu did not bat an eye. In fact, he was the one terminating the channels and destroying the keyword on his wings. He burned all his bridges so that they wouldn't be able to interfere later. They would have no chance to make excuses. All channels associated with the right-wing keyword, fight, have been terminated. The keyword has been erased. Recovery is now impossible. All the effects of the powers have disappeared. Due to this sudden absence, Yin Wu felt momentarily weakened from the power drain. A sense of helplessness rose in him as all the buffs ended simultaneously. He watched his stats decrease by more than 30% in his status window. Although this situation would have been fatal for any other player, Yin Wu was not concerned at all. On the contrary, he felt a sense of relief. The open channels were like a double-edged sword. Yin Wu managed to secure many amazing skills through them which had helped him grow, but the interference of the gods and demons continued to increase. It was also too difficult to try something secretly. Moreover, the powers were based on the karma that he accumulated with each god and demon. This arrangement was uncomfortable for Yin Wu, who wanted to walk a new path, and he felt as though he were wearing clothes that did not fit properly. But now, he was free from all those restrictions. He was not too concerned about the empty spots. After all, he could just fill them with something else. The right-wing keyword, fight, is exploring new possibilities. You have received a declaration of hostility from all gods and demons. Your list of achievements will be updated. With the Changgong Library, you have succeeded in perceiving the truth of the world. Your list of achievements will be updated. With the current level of your soul, your achievements have been deemed legendary. Legendary will now be quantified. Based on the keyword, the system will now conduct a sorting operation. His right wing was based on his own path anyway. Even if the other powers were gone, he could easily replace them and more with his reinforced and now quantifiable legends. Since he was at the cusp of transcending, he had a plethora of them. It seemed like that heavenly world had left him with one final present. Confronting the heavens, he was now considered the common enemy of all of the tower's transcendence. It was a great achievement that no one in the world had ever accomplished until now. The keyword, fight, could not be a more appropriate description of his path. Also, Yin Wu had made a new organ while he was in the Chenggong library which the gods and demons weren't aware of. I didn't really want to show it off so soon, but one side of Yin Wu's lips curved upwards even more. He was sneering at the great but stupid guys up in the heavens who were sucking their fingers and watching him. I guess, if I'm going to show it off anyway, better to make a big entrance. Your stone of sin is pulsating. You have learned a new method of utilizing the stone of sin. Wham! Yin Wu's right wing burned more splendidly than ever. Each feather glowed red like a ruby. The demonism's blackness that was close to consuming Yin Wu was torn apart and burned into non-existence. The ice that covered the stage all melted while the never-ending blizzard disappeared. Release. Boom. It was as if a new sun had descended into the world. His right wing blazed with a fury that was completely different, originating from the depths of the stone of sin. It was Lucille's flame, which he had used to shake the heavens in the past, the original flame. The right wing keyword, fight, has been reconfigured. According to its new properties and usage, it is now easier for your right wing to link to the stone of sin. You can now bring out the original flame that resided in the stone of sin. Caution: the original flame is a primordial fire that once threatened the heavens. Depending on how it is used, it may cause harm to the user. Please be careful when using it. Most of the gods look at you in horror. Most demons roar with fear as they recall the havoc caused by the original flame 1,000 years ago. After reading the revelations, Yin Wu had gained knowledge not available in the tower, including how to use the stone of sin properly. The foundation of the stone of sin was the spark at the beginning of the universe, the original flame. His process wasn't complete yet, and the original flame he wielded was nothing compared to the flames that appeared when the universe first emerged from the void. Still, being able to bring out and handle this much was already a huge achievement. The legend that enabled Lucille, who had once been a lighthouse keeper, to fight against the heavens under the name Lucifer was being recreated in Yin Wu's right wing. All gods of death are still with you. All demons of death are still with you. The throne of death has fully combined with your left wing keyword, death. All powers will be manifested. His right wing blazed with a red flame indicating, fight, and his left one was shrouded in blackness that indicated, death. Yin Wu clasped his hands tightly. Boom, 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 a sword power so intense that nothing could compare to it split the sky and the earth, falling straight down to the stage. The world seemed to flash, and the sound of the explosion only reverberated after the impact had already struck since the speed of sound hadn't been able to catch up. Even that was buried under the expanding aftershocks. When what seemed to be an endless parade of light and heat settled down, all the gods and demons watching the situation were shocked. The godly society less than Olympus greater than is stunned. The godly society less than Asgard greater than suspects your level. The godly society less than Diva greater than is suspicious of what happened in the Chenggong library. They feel an intense urge for you. The demonic society less than L'Infernal greater than indefinitely extends the contract they were considering breaking off. The demonic society less than Gia sect greater than swallows upon seeing your strength. The stage that had just been filled with blizzards and storms had turned into a land of death. The icy sea had evaporated, exposing the bare floor. Lava and sulfurous fumes flooded the scorched ground. The blue sky was also stained red. The stage had become an uninhabitable land with no proper ozone layer or atmosphere, and the intense heat that pervaded it could burn off one's skin. The scent of death overpowered everything to the extent that it was possible that even transcendent beings might not be able to survive. Even though they were immortal, they weren't free of death, and the more quick-witted gods and demons realized that simply being close to the explosion would have resulted in their deaths. The area which Sword Thunder had passed through was now Yin Wu's very own holy territory, and all the functions of the stage were halted as the land was filled with death and fire. The only reason it hadn't been completely annihilated was due to the tower's durability. However, it was so ruined, it was hard to tell how long it would take the Central Bureau to restore it. The trial would have to be suspended. The demonstration displayed the amazing might of Sword Thunder. The gods and demons were understandably feeling endangered because they had disregarded Yin Wu for being mortal and declared him as a common enemy. If they had known he had the strength to fight superior divine beings, they wouldn't have made their decisions so rashly. No matter how powerful the heavenly world was, it was a loss for them to turn someone who could stand against Alpharon into their enemy. The godly society less than Dilmun greater than is reviewing their declaration of enmity. The godly society less than Malik greater than has revealed they will postpone their declaration of enmity. The demonic society less than Niflheim greater than wishes to have friendly relations with. No, you guys don't need to do that. But Yi and Wu just smiled crookedly at them. Even if you don't want to come down, I'm on my way up. A fierce light flashed from his eyes. So, everyone should wait patiently. Typhon, the leader of less than Olympus greater than, expresses strong hostility toward you. Heimdall, the chief gatekeeper of less than Asgard greater than, grinds his teeth at your arrogant statement. Metatron, the secretary of less than Malik greater than, frowns. That's all, so fuck off. As soon as he spoke, the 52nd floor closed off. The entire 52nd floor has temporarily become your holy territory. The holy territory has been closed on your authorization. All functions except for ownership settings have been paused. Intervention from the outside has been blocked. All interference has been removed. The gazes from the heavenly world have been blocked. He could block the gazes of the gods and demons by using demarcation on the entire 52nd floor. Since gods and demons had absolute power in their territories, it wasn't a difficult task for Yi and Wu to do this. The only reason that it was prohibited was that it breached the law of causality of the stage, and so Yi and Wu only set it as his temporary holy territory. After the time was up, the annoying eyes would be on him again, but at least, they wouldn't see him while he was fighting the demonism. He looked down at the exposed spirit body of the demonism, who was thrashing in the black fire. Open hollow corner bracket ah. What have you done to my body? His twisted face was full of agony, and veins bulged on his skin. His body was cracked and covered in blood flowers as darkness dripped like blood from its mouth. Yi and Wu had used an entirely new form of sword thunder, and even though the demonism had released all the darkness it could to push away the approaching death, it couldn't do so because of the type of fight that Yi and Wu was using. The demonism was poisoned through death, and fight was the enzyme that killed any antidotes he tried to produce. It was a strength that would kill even the strongest transcendent, and it was an ultimate technique that Yi and Wu had created after reading the revelations in the Changgong library. The heavenly world was probably in an uproar right now. They had realized how much sword thunder threatened them, but when Yi and Wu sealed the floor, they couldn't see just how much of a danger it posed. Yi and Wu had planned this all along, knowing that the anxious beings would begin spreading all kinds of rumors about his strength, leaving the gods and demons vulnerable to the fear of the unknown. He was aiming to be the boogeyman of the heavenly world. Esmadiva is amused. Hel smiles wickedly. Osiris nods in agreement at your actions. He didn't think the gods and demons of death would blabber anything to their societies. Their passionate support of the Black King came before their affiliations to their societies, and they were now nearly one with Yi and Wu. Vimalasitra shows interest in how you'll fight. Cernunnos observes your plans. There were also the two beings who'd been with him for some time. Whoosh! Yi and Wu thrust his sky wings open. 3 pairs of black and red wings eclipsed the sky. Black fire sparked around his body. The entrancing sight was reminiscent of the angel of death. Open hollow corner bracket U. But all the demonism could see was the accursed creature who had brought his pride to the ground. He opened his jaws, thinking of swallowing Yi and Wu up. Krrr. When he bared his teeth, emptiness opened within his maw. Boom, rumble. The stage was destroyed again and again as Yi and Wu and the demonism clashed. Sword thunder tore through space when it shot down. Emptiness spread each time, trying to swallow Yi and Wu. Clatter, clack, chains flew, tying them both down. The chains stretching from Yi and Wu's left arm bound the demonism's feet, while the chains of emptiness the demonism lashed out wrapped themselves around Yi and Wu's neck. They fought as they constrained each other at the same time, so it was a slow battle. Whenever each of them attempted to gain the upper hand, their supply of holy power was choked off. Ha ha! Open hollow corner bracket dammit. Yi and Wu and the demonism both panted, exhausted. But unlike Yi and Wu, who was still rational thanks to his cold-blooded trait, the demonism was angry with frustration. Yi and Wu had become stronger than he'd expected. Once, Yi and Wu had been so weak that the demonism could have knocked him over with a finger, which was why the creature had waited for him to ripen. However, Yi and Wu had surpassed his expectations and was now standing on equal ground. The demonism couldn't help feeling how absurd the situation was. Because the demonism was using Vigrid as his temporary vessel, there was a limit to the magic power he could access, and it took a significant amount of energy for him to stay awake. The demonum couldn't focus all his strength on Yi and Wu. However, Yi and Wu was struggling, as well. He'd intentionally postponed his exuviation because of Alpharone. Even though Alpharon was at odds with the heavenly world, it was likely he would be more concerned about a new transcendent being arising from the lower world. Due to this, Yin Wu was limited to using the strength of a mortal. Technically, he and the demonism were fighting under similar disadvantages, but the demonism had slightly more drawbacks. Yin Wu could focus on the battle and refresh his magic power with the Sin Stone and the Dragon Heart, but the demonism had a limited window to maintain his spirit body. The longer the battle, the more disadvantaged he would be. Open hollow corner bracket to be this humiliated by my food. The demonism ground his teeth as he looked at Yin Wu in exhaustion and rage. His sharp canines seemed like they would break at any moment. Open hollow corner bracket next time. CHH. With that, his spirit body faded, and Vigrid, stained black, dropped to the ground. Clatter. Yin Wu quickly extended more chains to wrap around Vigrid to prevent the creature from moving even if he awoke again. The demonism would be tightly sealed since the chains were of divine iron. It's a shame I can't use Vigrid, but nothing can be done until I find a way to get rid of the creature. Yin Wu clucked his tongue. He disliked sealing Vigrid like this since he hadn't been able to awaken all its true names yet. But it was better to carry a sealed Vigrid around than to be caught unawares by the demonism. Because he hadn't seen the entire revelations, he didn't know how to eliminate or absorb the creature. Yin Wu planned on keeping it in emptiness until he found a way. The chains tightened around Vigrid as they dragged it into emptiness. Yin Wu could only catch his breath after the emptiness closed with a clank. He was weary from reawakening Sky Wings and fighting the demonism, however, he was proud that he had grown stronger. He released the settings of the holy territory. Messages exploded and countless gazes poured down, but he blocked anything except for what he needed. He no longer needed to be concerned about them. Instead, he opened the channels directed below and searched for Doyle. Open hollow corner bracket hung. Suddenly, he could hear Doyle's voice. He sounded surprised. It was understandable since it had only been a few days for him, but Yin Wu had grown overwhelmingly strong. Doyle was probably wondering if he was imagining things. What's been happening? Yin Wu chuckled and asked for an update on the resistors and the war, as he hadn't been able to find anyone on the 52nd floor. Doyle quickly got himself together and responded. Open hollow corner bracket. We fought well at first, but White Dragon suddenly started helping the other side. The fight became really difficult, so we retreated to the 50th floor, but close hollow corner bracket. Doyle laughed in disbelief. Open hollow corner bracket. They just suddenly lost.